Hi guys. This is Hirosaki and I hope you enjoy this one. This story is all about what if Naruto had a crossover in Star Trek. Starts a few years before the original Star Trek series and takes place in the Star Trek universe. Featuring Vulcan, Naruto. Chapter 6 Study Buddies. Naruto, Infinity Divide. Study Buddies. Blanket disclaimer: I do not own Naruto or Star Trek. Author's note. This chapter we see the beginnings of Naruto's hectic school life. Enjoy. Last time. Kesh was obviously excited. Well, get to it, man. I want to ride it. Considering the way you ride Zerals, that might be a disaster, Kesh, said Tlyra. Let's get it into shape so Naruto can test it out with a proper license, of course. Naruto nodded. That seems to be the most logical course of action. Are you both sure you want to help? I'm certain this will be a filthy job with lots of hard physical labor. Of course, said Tlyra. It will be enjoyable working together. Count me in, said Kesh. Then this will be my weekend project while I go to the academy during the week, said Naruto. Naruto's parents came out and saw the three kids examining the bike. Catching the tail end of the children's conversation, Tara said, "Just remember your schoolwork always takes precedence over that old bike, Naruto." Sovar asked, "So have you started it up yet?" "We've determined that it might burst into flames rather than start," said Naruto. "It would be logical to err on the side of caution." Sovar deflated and said, "You are truly your mother's son." Tara simply gave one of her tiny smiles. Chapter 6. Stardate 2267.304, Planet Vulcan, Shikar District, Vulcan Science Academy. It was Sunday. Naruto put the last of his belongings into their proper places and sat down on his bed to relax. It had been a rather tumultuous 2 days of moving his belongings from home to his new suite, which was a very tranquil pale blue color. The dormitories themselves were single-story and each dormitory was arranged in the most logical way possible. Every room was unnamed, unmarked, and identical in shape and size. Students were expected to notice the subtle differences in orientation, color, and position to determine which room was theirs. Each dormitory had a single main hall that led to the other buildings and of course was designed with impeccable logic in mind. The blonde found himself admiring the symmetry and rationality of the academy's layout and understood why his mother liked it so much here. Like the forge was a second home to Sovar, the academy was to Tara. He noted that every room was illuminated by natural light and the entire facility was very energy efficient. Looking out of his windows onto the campus proper, Naruto saw the intricate silver and white domes with spires arranged in orderly places among them. The academy was surrounded by tranquil, well-maintained parkland, and the buildings and the parks flowed harmoniously into one another. Even the lawns were perfectly maintained and each one was in a perfect geometric shape. The same could be said of the many trees and shrubs, all things were in their logical place. Naruto sighed peacefully as he took in his new surroundings. Until a horrendous cacophony from the next suite nearly bowled Naruto off of his bed. He heard something like an animal howling and crashing and the blonde immediately went out to investigate. He found many other students peering out of their doors or standing outside the suite beside Naruto's. They all seemed to be puzzled and mulling around outside quietly observing. Naruto said authoritatively, "Has no one investigated this infernal noise?" Seeing everyone take a step back, the blonde said, "Someone could be injured. We must investigate this situation at once." He went over and rapped on the door loudly before he said, "Can anyone hear me in there?" The door came open and a tall, black-haired human male said, "You here to join the party? You look kinda young to be here." A red-headed human girl poked her head out through the doorway. She was laughing and smelled of alcohol. "Look at you, blondie. Aren't you cute? Come on in." "I don't think he's here to party, Allison," said the male as Naruto's eyes seemed to be burning a hole in his chest. The girl flipped her shoulder-length hair back and laughed. "Of course, he is. I'm Allison Fairbanks and this is my buddy Jeff Baker. Where did you get those cute whisker marks?" Naruto felt his ears starting to hurt from what he realized was some sort of music and the smell of alcohol was bothering his sensitive nose. The smell of humans wasn't too great either. Vulcans don't sweat, humans do asterisk. Naruto turned his burning blue eyes to Jeff's frightened brown ones and said, "Unless you want the academy administration to get involved, I would turn that sound down a few decibels." The blonde then marched back to his room and closed the door. Jeff cringed and Allison laughed. "I like him," said the redhead. Naruto went back to his suite and found that the noise level was turned down considerably, though he could still hear it. Of all the rooms in this academy, I have to be next door to rowdy humans. I can't help but feel this is no coincidence, he thought mutinously. The blonde hybrid sighed and looked back at his school uniforms and civilian clothing he had arranged in his closet. Some people preferred the uniforms, but the only time they were actually required were for formal ceremonies, and there were a lot of formal ceremonies. His standard uniform was a conservative gray and black. Naruto's civilian clothing was his traditional browns, tans and blacks, though he did have one set of formal robes that were a deep crimson. They represented the Mphao clan. He was rather proud of those. Aside from that, Naruto had a platinum medallion presented to him that showed he was a first-year student, and he was to wear it at all times at the academy. It was emblemized with the infinite diversity and infinite combinations symbol asterisk, and in the ring around it was the Gallic Vulcan script for learn. As the years in the academy passed, more symbols would be added in the ring around the IDIC symbol that showed each student's respective position and achievements within the organization of the academy. Listening to the quiet thumping of the music through the wall, Naruto wondered what tomorrow would bring with the start of classes. Monday, main auditorium. Naruto's first 4 periods of the morning classes had been preempted by a formal meeting. It had been stressful to the blonde, as most of it was just things regarding decorum and rules regarding behavior for newcomers. The entire meeting seemed endless to Naruto, and speech after speech explaining the hows and whys of the academy lifestyle was imparted to the first years. Gods, I wish I could relax with some advanced calculus, thought the blonde. He had looked around for his acquaintance Senva but did not see her. He did see the human Jeff looking nervous and Allison looking amused at the morning proceedings. After a healthy lunch in the dorm cafeteria, Naruto actually went to his first class of the day. His 5th period was an hour dedicated to physical education. There were many activities to choose from, but Naruto chose to join a martial arts group and went over to a set of mats dedicated to practitioners of Shan. He saw Senva there getting handily defeated by an older student. I didn't know she practiced Shan, thought Naruto. She's an advanced learner but not quite an adept yet. The instructor asked, "First year, are you here to participate or observe?" Naruto found his center and said, "I am here to participate in the Shan matches, master. My name is Naruto." The instructor looked at the young hybrid oddly and said, "I am Instructor Aloran. As you are new, we will need to gauge your skill level." Naruto nodded and said, "I am preparing Master Aloran." Aloran nodded. "You use formal speech for your martial arts. I take it you have some formal training?" "You are correct, master. I've trained for 8 years, said the spiky-haired blonde. "I am a 10th level Shan adept." Several eyes widened and an older student said, "That is highly improbable. Are you sure you are not a 10th level learner?" "I stand by my words," said Naruto. "How old are you?" asked Aloran. The blue-eyed boy said, "I am 13. I will prove my skill to you with an appropriate sparring partner." Master Aloran raised an eyebrow and said, "Galsh, come here. Will you test this young man?" Galsh was 2 heads taller than Naruto and extremely broad and muscular. He absolutely towered over the blonde hybrid. Galsh asked, "Instructor Aloran, you wish for me to spar with this boy?" Aloran nodded and Naruto walked into the ring and bowed formally. "May we have a good match?" The big student looked slightly confused but then bowed and said, "Yes, let us have a good match." "Galsh, Naruto, begin," said Instructor Aloran. Naruto hit Galsh before the big man could react. Naruto kicked Galsh's feet to the right as he gripped the larger man's left hand and flipped him completely to the left, causing Galsh to flip over twice. Galsh tried to recover with a foot sweep at Naruto, but the blonde anticipated the move and flipped back and away from Galsh and his superior reach. Galsh got back up and shook his head. "I need to take this boy seriously," he thought. Forming two knife hands, Galsh attacked with a quick and ruthless set of combos that Naruto batted aside or deflected harmlessly. Galsh went for a neck chop, but Naruto caught his larger opponent's hand, flipped Galsh completely over his shoulder, causing the larger martial artist to land flat on his back, which knocked the wind out of him. Naruto jumped back in a fluid motion and slid into a low stance that extended his leg reach. Galsh was shaking the cobwebs out of his head from the flip. Naruto's eyes burned with determination, and he charged with an open palm and hit 3 pressure points before he finished Galsh off with a foot sweep. Galsh was lying flat on his back again in a state of disbelief as Instructor Aloran called the match in Naruto's favor. The blonde bowed and said, "Thank you for the match. Please allow me to unlock those nerve clusters." Galsh nodded as Naruto tapped his pressure points and caused the tension to be released. Then Naruto helped Galsh up and said, "Good spar. You are an 8th level adept, correct?" Galsh's eyes widened. "How could you tell?" "You lack the footwork to go with the speed of your hands," said Naruto honestly. "It is a stage we all must pass." "You are quite skilled," Galsh praised Naruto. The observers of the match were all completely dumbfounded. Instructor Aloran said, "Unlocking nerve clusters like that is a 2nd level master skill." Naruto said, "I have a long way to go before I am a 2nd level master in Shan, Master Aloran. I am but an adept that has much to learn." The blonde was going to go greet Senva but was swept away by several high-ranking Shan students that wanted Naruto's advice. He waved at her, and she waved back. There was amusement in her eyes. After weathering dozens of questions, Naruto managed to make it over to Senva, who was watching the other students spar. She said, "It is good to see you are well. I had no idea you had such skill in the martial arts." Naruto shrugged, "It is good to see you too. I'm in the Western dormitory, where are you?" "I'm on the opposite side of the academy in the Eastern dorm," replied Senva. "Hey Naruto. Is this your girlfriend?" asked Allison as she materialized out of the crowd. "You kicked some serious ass out there. How did she find me?" The blonde face-palmed and said, Senva, this is Miss Fairbanks who lives in the same dorm I do." "Yo, call me Allison," said the redhead. "We are next-door neighbors after all." "I thought that was Mr. Jeff's room," said Naruto dryly. Allison shook her head. "Nope. Jeff lives on my other side. You should have partied with us. You're cool enough in my book. Where did you learn to fight like that?" "My parents are both Shan masters," explained the blonde hybrid. "Best not to mention Kun-at-la. Most people consider it brutal. Besides, I'm better at it than Shan." Allison turned to Senva and said, "So Miss Senva, are you Naruto's girlfriend?" Senva blushed a tiny bit. "He and I just met at the entrance exams." "I am not his girlfriend." "Then you don't mind if I take him as my study buddy?" asked Allison. "Study buddy?" asked both Naruto and Senva with identical flat tones. Allison said conspiratorially, "You passed with honors." "I looked that up and that's something that only happens every 50 or 60 years. Given you placed 3rd, I can safely assume that you are some kind of genius at something. Rumor has it you blew the staff away on astrophysics, Naruto." She wiggled her eyebrows. "Am I right?" Naruto's blue eyes widened a tiny bit, but inside he was panicking. "By the gods, I have a human stalker." "Ahem, it is not logical to speculate just on rumors. I would be curious as to where you obtained this information." "A girl is entitled to her secrets," said the redhead with a smile like the cat that ate the canary. "We have astrophysics and quantum theory together this afternoon, so I'll see you then." Allison then spun on her heel and walked off energetically. Naruto thought aloud, how could she know my class schedule? This is most disturbing. "Indeed, it is," agreed Senva as her comment rattled him out of his thoughts. "I too have astrophysics this afternoon." "What period do you have?" "I have astrophysics with Professor Iria during my 7th period," answered Naruto. "Excellent," said Senva. "I shall see you there. I need to get to my 6th period. You probably should get yours as well." Senva then departed. Naruto was astounded at the intensity of his 6th period. Somehow, I expected writing and literature to be relaxing. Professor Kawarta runs her class in an almost militaristic fashion. I already have a report due Friday on passages from the Logic of the Forge. He sighed. What a heavy piece of reading to squeeze into a single week. The blonde walked into the astrophysics lecture hall and immediately felt himself relax at the many mathematical formulas written on the walls as well as laws and advanced theories. Much better, he whispered to himself. Within minutes everyone had arrived and had picked a random learning station. He was soon greeted by Senva, who took a station to his right, and Allison, who took a station on his left, by rudely asking someone else to move. The redhead waved and grinned. Naruto thought, curse my blonde hair. I'm so easy to spot. While Naruto was lamenting his spiky blonde locks, Professor Iria walked in and stood before the class. She was a tall and imposing Vulcan woman. I bid you greetings. I am Professor Iria and I am the new head of the astrophysics department with Dr. Dinak's retirement. She looked directly at Naruto for a split second, but her expression was unreadable. I have high expectations for this class since we have both the second and third ranked members of the first year class here. Miss Allison Fairbanks and Mr. Naruto Mfao will no doubt be leading our class in scoring, so if you need extra tutoring, you might consider asking them. Please raise your hands for the other two. As he raised his hand, Naruto's blue eyes nearly popped out of his head as Allison's green ones sparkled with mirth. Senva likewise was doing her best not to gawk like all the other students were. You may lower your hands, said Professor Iria. She pointed towards the main holographic display and said, direct your attention to the main display class. Today we will discuss the very basics of warp theory, which you all should know by now, so you may all become acclimated to the way this class is organized. Naruto watched in distress as various students were studying him carefully. He felt nervous at being singled out and put on the spot, but Allison was happily soaking up the attention she was getting. This is so awesome, said Allison as she walked towards the quantum physics class together with Naruto. Not only does Professor Iria like us, but she also acknowledged us in front of the other students. I felt it was rather rude, replied the blonde. I wonder what her agenda is. The redhead chuckled. We're two of the 3 top scoring students in our year. What do you mean by agenda? Naruto sighed. Vulcans value their privacy. For her to call us out in front of the other students, she must have a logical reason. He shook his head. Changing topics, considering you have a higher score than I do on the entrance exams, why do you need me to study with you? I'm quite sure you could pass without me. Allison smiled weakly. I'm all alone here and it's hard to find people that I can be friends with. I've always been too smart for other people, so most people avoid me. Naruto saw her green eyes had a sadness in them and said quietly, I'll be your study partner then. I know it's hard to be alone from experience. The redhead glomped him in a massive hug and said, Great, we'll knock them all dead. For his part, Naruto was blushing green and was too mortified to speak at such a blatantly emotional display. Naruto's first day of class was over and he made it back to his suite and sat down. What an exhausting day, he thought aloud. Getting out his tablet, Naruto went through the files and brought up the first chapter of Surek's Logic of the Forge. He went through the introduction and thought to himself, this is no way to enjoy Surek's teachings. This is like having the data shoved into your brain like dash. There was a rattle noise and then a thumping at his door. What is it now? Growled the blonde. He got up and said, unlock. The door immediately slid open, and Jeff Baker fell in the doorway with an oof. Jeff looked up and saw Naruto's feet, black robes, medallion and finally the blonde's rather stern face and blazing blue eyes. May I help you, Mr. Jeff? Naruto asked the black-haired young man. Seeing Naruto's rather intense look, Jeff said, I'm sorry Naruto, I thought this was my room. He gave the blonde a weak smile. Sorry about that. Naruto held out his hand and pulled Jeff to his feet. As the blonde looked at the tall and lanky boy, he said, there is no need to be so timid, Jeff. It isn't like I'm going to hurt you. Jeff scratched his neck nervously and said, I felt kind of bad about disturbing you with the loud music yesterday. Thanks for not reporting us. Allison is kind of out of control. The blonde motioned towards a seat and said, Tea? The human boy looked surprised and said, "Sure, thank you." Naruto served some tea from his food replicator and said, "Tea out of a food replicator is a poor substitute for home-brewed tea, but it's all I have to serve, I'm afraid." Jeff took a sip and said, "It's good." The two young men sat in silence as they sipped their tea, and the dark-haired boy asked, "So how are your classes?" Allison said she has 3 class periods with you. She seemed really tickled. The blonde sat his tea aside and said, "Yes, we have physical education, astrophysics, and quantum physics together." She seemed pleased. "She seems to really like you," said Jeff. "I wouldn't stand a chance with her," the young man shrugged. "I think you're her type." Naruto raised a questioning eyebrow. "Her type? I'm not familiar with your meaning. I assume that's a Terran phrase?" Jeff chuckled. "I mean, you're the type of guy she finds attractive, like a boyfriend." "You mean you aren't her boyfriend, Jeff?" asked Naruto, puzzled. "You were in her room, and she was dash." "Allison says I'm too old and too wimpy," said Jeff. "Besides, she's a genius and I barely made it in. I'm at the bottom of our class of 87. The blonde asked, "How old are you?" "I'm 13 and you don't look old to me." "I'm almost 18, Allison is 14, explained Jeff. "On top of that, I'm already balding. It's kind of embarrassing." "It's simple genetics," said Naruto. "I fail to see why it would be a source of discomfort for you. Isn't baldness a common thing among human males?" Jeff smiled. "Some men lose their hair later in life, but I'm very young, so it makes me look older." Naruto picked up his cup and took a sip of tea. "You are very self-conscious about yourself. You should focus on the positives rather than the negatives. You must be very intelligent, or you wouldn't have made it into the Vulcan Science Academy to begin with. Adhere to your strengths to overcome your weaknesses." "That's what my parents taught me." "You seem awfully wise for someone that's 13, Naruto," said Jeff. "Thanks for the tea. I'm 2 rooms south, right?" "You are welcome, and you are 2 rooms north," said Naruto as he showed Jeff to the door and pointed north. "Have a good night," said Naruto as the black-haired young man went to his room. Now to get back to my reading. Stardate 2267.310, Planet Vulcan, Shirkar District, Vulcan Science Academy. Personal log: my first week at the Vulcan Science Academy has been quite tumultuous. My original plans to go home this weekend and work on father's old bike with Clyra and Kesh have been completely dismembered faster than you could say homework. Clyra in particular seemed distressed over the situation. When I mentioned I was helping my new study partners and that 2 of them were female, she told me a piece of Vulcan wisdom that was imparted to her by her mother. All women are insane and all men are stupid. I've been pondering this matter for several hours and I have yet to figure out the logic behind it. Perhaps I should ask my mother for advice on this matter. On an unconnected note, I have finally perfected the spiraling sphere or Rasengan that is pure shape manipulation of my chakra. I need to test its capabilities as it is combat-oriented. I have come to the conclusion that these ancestral memories are gradually being unlocked as I grow stronger physically and spiritually. It is a difficult concept to conceive at this point, but my most recent memory dreams have been of a technique called the shadow clone. I believe it could unlock possibilities that quite literally defy the laws of conventional physics. Of course, chakra in general is a mystery that Mother and I have yet to unravel, other than it is an evolutionary step towards controlling the body's bioelectric energy. I wish I had more time to dedicate to studying chakra, but my various professors' current goal in life seems to be burying me alive in homework. Just as bad, due to Professor Iria's announcement, I have numerous astrophysics students that have asked me for guidance. The blonde put down his tablet. Mother is correct. Keeping a personal log does help organize one's thoughts at the beginning of the day. I will have to thank her for the advice. Now to have a quiet break. He heard a pounding on his door. "Oh, what the hell is it now?" he growled mentally. Naruto opened his door to the overzealous Allison, who said with characteristic cheerfulness, "Good morning, Blondie. Ready for another exciting day?" "My plans for a peaceful morning of reflection have been shot down in flames," lamented the blonde hybrid. Allison laughed. "Who needs a boring morning of reflection when you can have a whole day of excitement with me?" Besides, poor Jeff needs our help. Ugh. Urge to prank, rising. There will be a reckoning red. Just you wait, thought Naruto darkly. Allison's suite, after lunch. It's bloody impossible, cried Jeff. Naruto said, no, it's genetics. You have the same professor I do, Jeff. This is basic stuff. I think Professor Tpar hates me, lamented the dark-haired boy. It's just chromosomal drift between species, said Senva. When you crossbreed animals, then the resulting hybrid will be unique. Allison grinned. They are talking about you again, Naruto. The blonde just shrugged. Jeff snapped his fingers. No wonder. I guess that's why you understand this stuff so well, huh, Naruto? Considering half of me is Vulcan and the other half is unknown, then yes, I've studied genetics with my mother extensively, said Naruto. Unknown? Asked Senva. Everyone assumed you were half human like Ambassador Sarek's famous son Spock. What are you then? Asked Allison curiously as her green eyes stared intently at Naruto. Is that why you have those cute whisker marks? Jeff scolded, Allison, don't be rude. But I want to know, replied the inquisitive redhead. My species is unknown, said Naruto. The whisker birthmarks do seem to come from that side though. It's mainly classified by Starfleet, so I won't talk about it. Senva looked very curious. Then you really don't know? That must be very unsettling. It is vexing sometimes, but my parents have always treated me as a normal Vulcan child, explained Naruto. I've just always been a bit different in appearance. Rats, I was hoping you'd have some cool abilities outside of normal Vulcans, said Allison in a disappointed tone. Naruto's eyes glittered. You mean like walking up walls and across ceilings in defiance of gravity? Exactly, exclaimed Allison. You have quite an imagination there, Naruto, said Jeff. It sounded like something Allison would appreciate, said the blonde. Senva said, perhaps we should get back to our genetics homework. Professor Tpar expects it to be completed first thing Monday morning. Gymnasium, the next morning. Sunday morning Naruto was up early and was at the gymnasium practicing his Vishan routine with his new friend Galsh as Master Aloran observed. You need to relax your stances more, Galsh, advised the blonde. Find your center and release your mind and body from their confines. Naruto gently stretched at an impossible angle into a handstand. Then he flipped back into a standing position. Forgive me, Naruto, but that was not Shan, said Galsh in a puzzled tone. Naruto nodded. Correct. I see no reason to limit oneself to a single style. Galsh asked, what martial art was that then? Instructor Aloran commented, unless I am mistaken, that was one of the exercises to build upper body strength in the style of Kuril-Ifla. Kuril-Ifla is said to be absolutely brutal, said Galsh in a concerned tone. It is also incredibly effective regardless of its reputation for being barbaric, said the blonde. My father is a 6th level master at Kuril-Ifla, Master Aloran. Aloran's eyes nearly popped out of his head. A 6th level master? What does he think of you mixing moves of different martial arts? Naruto hid his amusement at Aloran's reaction. Father always found my style to be unpredictable and innovative. He has always approved ever since he started training me out in Forge. You've trained in the Forge? Asked Galsh. That sounds very harsh. Ever since I was 5 years old, said Naruto. I got beat up rather badly by other children, so father and mother trained me in their respective arts. Mother is a 2nd level master in Shan, so she is no pushover. Aloran waved the 2 boys over to sit with him and have some tea. After the 3 sat down together, the master asked, so what level would you say you are at in Kuril-Ifla? I currently hold the rank of a 2nd level master in Kuril-Ifla, said Naruto. It actually comes more naturally to me than Shan. Galsh took a sip of tea. I'm surprised you never mentioned this before, said the big young man. Naruto shrugged. Kuril-Ifla has a reputation that precedes it. Many people have the misconception that practitioners of Kuril-Ifla are uncivilized, so I rarely discuss it. That is a logical bit of reasoning for Naruto, said Aloran in approval. That being said, I have observed Kareelifla matches and they are quite brutal to watch. Neither Galsh nor I will mention this to others. Galsh nodded in agreement and Naruto said, I thank you. What do you say we get back to our Shan practice? Naruto's sweet. After practice, Naruto was talking to Tlyra on his communicator. I am glad to hear from you, Tlyra. You seemed frustrated when we last spoke. Is everything all right? Something rather drastic has happened, said Tlyra in a strained voice. I would like to see you in person to relate the news as it is of a sensitive nature. Noting the stress in his friend's voice, the blonde pulled out his tablet and said, I can come out via transport bus this evening at 6. I can take one back here at 9. Will that be enough time, Tlyra? It should be enough, said the blue-wearing girl. I'm sorry to interrupt your studies, but dash. If you deem it necessary, then I will be there. Naruto said with a tone of finality. I trust your logic on these matters. Where do you want to meet? My house would be best, said Tlyra. Very well, I will see you this evening, replied Naruto. Cafeteria. The group of 4 study partners was having breakfast together. And so, I propose we use Naruto's room instead of mine today, said Allison. With all my stuff it's a bit crowded. That seems logical, said Senva. The excessive clutter in your room is distracting. Not to mention it smells like humans. Hey! I like my room, defended the redhead. It's a work in progress. It looks more like a starship's crash site, commented Jeff. Shut up before I hurt you, Jeff, said Allison. My room isn't that bad. Jeff said, off topic, but how come Vulcan last names are so hard to say? Matfau isn't that hard to say. It's Gallic Vulcan for the clan who rides, the writers said Naruto. Matfau, asked Jeff. Forget I said anything, said Naruto in a flat tone. What about your name, Senva? Asked Allison. I want to hear Jeff completely butcher it too, she said with a snort. Senva sighed. My clan name is Teolik, Mot, which is an old Gallic form of the snake, clan. Go ahead and say it, Jeff, said Allison with huge eyes. This I've got to hear. Jeff said in a pouting tone, I'm not even trying with that one. Naruto said, on an unconnected note, I will be out this evening until after 9 so we can study in my room till about 6. Is everything all right? Asked Senva. A friend of mine has urgent news so I am going to see her, explained Naruto. I hope all is well, said the Vulcan girl. As do I, the blonde replied gravely. Naruto's sweet. You have hardly any decorations at all, Naruto, said Allison with a sweat drop. This room of yours is utterly boring. You don't even have any pictures. Naruto sighed, we are here to study, not to critique my living space. It is clean and efficient, commented Senva. Everything seems to be in a logical order. The blonde nodded in appreciation. Thank you. Jeff was looking at a small holographic projector on the nightstand beside Naruto's bed. Wow, Naruto, who is this total babe? She's hot. Is she your girlfriend? Naruto's eyebrow twitched. That would be my mother, Jeff. The projector scrolls through different members of my family. Allison exploded into laughter as Jeff blushed madly in embarrassment. When the redhead got herself under control, she watched as the holographic projector scrolled through Sovar, Tara, Talik, and then a picture of the whole family together, including Naruto. Well, in Jeff's defense, Naruto's mom is smokin' hot. Shut up, Allison, cried Jeff. Let's just do our homework, said Senva. Naruto nodded and said, I am in full agreement, Senva. Shikar District, Tlyra's house. Naruto quietly knocked on the door at Tlyra's residence at 6:30 in the evening. Tlyra's mother Anuak answered the door and said, Naruto, welcome. We've been waiting for you. There is much to be discussed. The blonde quietly entered and took off his sandals. Thank you for inviting me into your home. Tlyra sounded stressed when she called, so I came as soon as I could make arrangements. Tlyra came out of the back and said, Naruto, I'm so glad you are here. Please join me in my room. I'll get us some tea. Naruto was soon sitting at a small table for tea that Clara had in her room to entertain guests. He took a sip of tea and cringed slightly. Clara's mother must have made this. The blue-wearing girl said, "My mother made the tea. I'm not sure what flavor it is." Clara took a delicate sip and got an extremely sour look on her face. "Perhaps we should skip this tea. It seems quite unpalatable. I can't even tell what flavor it is." "Ah, that is an excellent idea," said Naruto. He looked at Clara and how tired she looked. "Tell me what happened, Clara. You seem very stressed." Clara sighed. "Where do I start?" She pondered for a moment and said, "Arev is out of therapy and visited this morning. I'm afraid that he is damaged." "Damaged?" asked the blonde. "Do you mean in a physical or mental way?" The brown-haired girl said, "After 2 years of private therapy, Arev decided to embrace the path of emotionalism over logic." Naruto's blue eyes goggled. "What? But that's absurd. What do his parents think?" "His parents are very distraught and have all but disowned him," explained Clara. "For obvious reasons, my engagement to him has broken off. He grew very angry when I declared this, and he threatened me. He said I belong to him, and when his Ponfar comes around he will seek me out whether I agree to it or not. I am very concerned he will carry out his threat, and he acts unstable and unbalanced. Everyone has urged him to go back into therapy for his own sake, but he is convinced that emotional control can only be accomplished by experiencing emotions. His display was vulgar and illogical. I don't know if his parents will be able to keep him, as he's already spoken of leading a nomadic life with others that reject Shurek's teachings. His parents already indicated that they did not wish to let him influence his younger siblings." Naruto reached out and grasped Clara's hands with his own larger ones. "I will protect you from him, Clara. Arev will never touch you if I have a say in it." Clara gently squeezed Naruto's hands. "Arev hates you and wants you dead, Naruto. He said so himself. He also hates Kesh, but not to the same extent. You must be cautious, Naruto. I do not want you to be hurt by him. Arev has become a monster. If Arev attacks me or anyone I care for, then I won't hold back," said Naruto in an iron tone. "You mean you would actually use your chakra?" asked Clara. Naruto nodded. "If he tries to hurt you in any way, Clara, I will put him down like the sick animal he is. I won't let him touch you." Vulcan Science Academy. Naruto got back to his suite at 9:30 and sat wondering what exactly happened to Arev. Clara's parents explained to Naruto that the engagement was mutually broken between Arev and Clara's parents, which put the blue-wearing girl in the position of being 13 and in bonded. Regardless of this fact, Arev had been completely enraged and apparently was dragged out of Clara's house by his own very mortified father. "It isn't like Arev was ever any sort of friend to me," thought the blonde. "Other than taunting me from day one and attacking me, we are barely acquaintances. I saved his life and it made him mad. Perhaps he was damaged all along and rebelled completely during his therapy. How disturbing." Naruto showered and changed into his night clothes. He thought aloud, "If Arev tries to harm Clara in any way, there will be no power in the world that can save him from me." Naruto slept uneasily that night, dreaming of assassination techniques from his ancestral memories. Whether he knew it or not, his dreams would prepare the blonde for anything. Chapter 7: The Graith. Naruto, Infinity Divide. The Graith. Blanket disclaimer: I do not own Naruto or Star Trek. Author's note: this time Naruto meets a zoo animal and finally gets to work on that bike. Enjoy. Last time. "If Arev attacks me or anyone I care for, then I won't hold back," said Naruto in an iron tone. "You mean you would actually use your chakra?" asked Clara. Naruto nodded. "If he tries to hurt you in any way, Clara, I will put him down like the sick animal he is. I won't let him touch you." Vulcan Science Academy. Naruto got back to his suite at 9:30 and sat wondering what exactly happened to Arev. Clara's parents explained to Naruto that the engagement was mutually broken between Arev and Clara's parents, which put the blue-wearing girl in the position of being 13 and in bonded. Regardless of this fact, Arev had been completely enraged and apparently was dragged out of Clyra's house by his own very mortified father. It isn't like Arev was ever any sort of friend to me, thought the blonde. Other than taunting me from day one and attacking me, we are barely acquaintances. I saved his life and it made him mad. Perhaps he was damaged all along and rebelled completely during his therapy. How disturbing. Naruto showered and changed into his night clothes. He thought aloud, if Arev tries to harm Clyra in any way, there will be no power in the world that can save him from me. Naruto slept uneasily that night, dreaming of assassination techniques from his ancestral memories. Whether he knew it or not, his dreams would prepare the blonde for anything. Chapter 7. Stardate 2267.316, Planet Vulcan, Shirkar District, Vulcan Science Academy. Naruto woke up Monday morning with the knowledge of several ways to kill a person, both armed and unarmed, and wondered if he should have his head examined. By Friday he knew dozens of ways. The blonde felt he would have to practice these moves in order to make sure he had mastery over them, so he wouldn't use them instinctually like so many moves. On the positive side, Naruto could see each move with absolute clarity, as if he had a deeply ingrained memory of every one of them. Like the many chakra techniques in his arsenal, Naruto knew this was an ancestral memory. Just what were my people, assassins, wondered the blonde. The concept made sense. I need to talk to mother and father about this, he thought aloud. After recording his morning personal log and having a light breakfast, Naruto reviewed his genetics and biology homework for his first session of class with Professor Tpar. While Naruto enjoyed Tpar's manner of teaching with rapid-fire questions and answers expected, his friend Jeff was terrified of the woman. Often Naruto ended up helping Jeff with homework because the young human man tended to get nerve-wracked. Senva and Allison had Professor Tpar for their third class session together, so they had the same homework at least. Naruto had a slight advantage that he already studied genetics intensively with his mother because of the blonde's hybrid nature. Tara had a master's degree in xenobiology. Naruto soon was dressed and put on his Platinum Academy medallion. Exiting his suite for class, the blonde stepped out in the hall and felt his fighting instincts roar to life. Naruto suddenly heard yelling and screaming coming from the south. He saw an animal running down the hallway. It reminded him of a lumacha in a way. It was some sort of big hunting cat and was white with blue spots. In the back of his mind, he heard others calling out and warning that the beast was dangerous and to get away. It growled at him, and Naruto's eyes crackled with chakra. The massive creature paused for a moment and then lunged at the blonde hybrid. Naruto hit the cat with an axe kick on top of its head that sent it crashing to the floor senseless. The big cat stumbled back and put its paws on its head. It hunkered down and meowed in deference. Naruto said, "Don't you move 1 centimeter. I know you're scared, but attacking others will do you no good." About that time, a Vulcan 3 Andorian guards arrived with stun guns and other gear to subdue the creature and stood gawking as Naruto scolded the 300 kilograms of solid muscle, teeth, and claws as if it was a common house pet. Both Allison and Jeff saw what happened through their cracked doors and were wide-eyed and speechless. So was everyone else who witnessed the blonde's actions, which was a good chunk of the western dorm. After the caretakers took the animal back with them to captivity, Naruto found out it was an Andorian predator called a graith, and the animal had apparently escaped its confines after some sort of medical examination. If I was taken to another world and poked and prodded, I'd want to escape too, was all Naruto had to say about the whole incident. Allison, on the other hand, was ecstatic about it. "Naruto, that was amazing. How did you know how to subdue that graith? I mean, it was only one hit. Have you studied graith biology?" Naruto sighed. "I didn't even know what a graith was until after I knocked it down and they restrained it. Most predators back off when they realize a stronger predator is nearby. I gave it the impression I was an apex predator, that's all." "That's all?" asked Jeff in disbelief. "I'd have been running in terror." The blonde said, "All creatures fit into an ecosystem with an apex predator at the top. The best way to deal with such creatures is to convince them they are completely outclassed." "You make it sound so elementary," deadpanned Jeff. "I still say it was tremendous," said Allison as they headed off towards their first sessions of class. Alumni lecture / debate hall. Later that morning, Tara was giving a short presentation on quantum mechanics, and when she found out that her co-presenter had been unavoidably delayed. Her co-presenter was an astrodynamicist and astrophysicist, and together they'd been working on a warp theory tentatively called transwarp. Basically, the concept was overlapping warp fields shifting places to increase current warp speeds. As it stood, the power consumption, size, and cost made the idea prohibitive, but proving the theory and generating discussion was the goal here, not selling a working product. At any rate, the lecture was received well, though it ran short because Tara didn't have a copy of all her counterparts' notes. Damn stubborn Tellarite, thought the onyx-eyed beauty. Having some unexpected time on her hands, Tara knew it was close to lunchtime and decided to see if her son was in the Western dorm cafeteria that Naruto mentioned he usually ate in. As she glided down the halls soaking up memories of her own time in the academy, she started hearing rumors of a student frightening a zoo animal, an Andorian graith of all things, into obedience, and that he did it completely unarmed. Now I must find my son just to see what he's been up to. He can even make dorm life an adventure. What are we going to do with you, Naruto? She thought with a gleam of mischief in her onyx eyes. Western dorm cafeteria. After their morning class sessions, Naruto and his friends were having lunch together. The academy rumor mill was in full swing. The fact Naruto's spiky blonde hair sticking out like a sore thumb did not help. Allison was still excited about the situation with the graith. I wish I'd recorded it on my tablet. You were so awesome, Naruto, gushed the redhead. I'm surprised you haven't been interviewed yet. Jeff nodded. It had to be seen to be believed. I bet the media team is very interested. I truly hope I'm not interviewed, groused Naruto. He'd already done his best to avoid the academy media team. Being a hybrid had them all rather curious about the blonde to begin with. I heard the rumors about the graith being loose in the academy, but I wasn't sure what to think until Jeff explained the situation to me, said Senba. From what I've heard, it is part of an Andorian traveling zoo, and the animals are going to be here at the Vulcan Science Academy over the next 3 weeks. Logically, they should improve their security if this is going to take place. Having an animal escape captivity before the actual display has taken place is not a very promising start. It might be better to have the display in a more controlled environment like the zoo in Shirkar City's old quarter, said Naruto. They have an impeccable safety record. A beautiful Vulcan woman in formal crimson robes of the Mphao clan walked up and said, Naruto, there you are, my son. She wore an academy medallion that had masses of symbols on it, including 3 doctorates and a number of lesser degrees. Humor glimmered in Tara's onyx eyes as she saw her son cringe in embarrassment. I came to the academy to give a presentation to the alumni only to find out you frightened a full-grown graith into submission. Hasn't fighting Lumatyas in the forge curbed your appetite for that sort of entertainment? Hello, mother, said Naruto. It is good to see you are well. I wasn't aware you would be here today. Tara explained. One of the other speakers was unable to appear, and I found myself with unexpected time on my hands. When I heard all sorts of rumors about a student taming a graith with a glare, I knew it had to be you. It was easy to confirm given you are a blonde. May I join you? Naruto stood up. Certainly, mother. Allow me to introduce my fellow classmates. Naruto quickly introduced Allison, Senba, and Jeff. It's a pleasure to meet you, ma'am, said Jeff with a slight blush. She's really beautiful, he thought dreamily. Senba said, it is an honor to meet you, Mrs. Mphao. I see where Naruto got his facial expressions. Naruto was amazing. He took out that graith in one hit, said Allison excitedly. I'm Allison, you have so much on your medallion. Are those 3 doctorates? Tara raised an eyebrow in an identical fashion as her son. What an exuberant girl. Reminds me of my days in Starfleet. You translate Gallic Vulcan well, Miss Allison. Yes, I hold 3 doctorates. I specialize in quantum physics primarily. I wondered why Naruto had such talent in that area, said Senba conversationally. Tara looked over at Naruto and said, Naruto's talents lean more towards astrophysics actually. He will surpass me before he graduates. Naruto blushed and said, you don't know that, mother. Tara hid her tiny smile and enjoyed listening to the banter of Naruto and his classmates while she ate. Jeff's suite, that evening. "Well, it's a small wonder you are so cute when your mom looks like Naruto," said Allison. Naruto blushed slightly. "She's beautiful." I thought Jeff was going to melt into goo looking at her. Jeff blushed madly at Allison's banter. He squeaked out, "Was it that obvious?" Senva nodded and said, "Yes, it was quite apparent. It's only a natural reaction to an attractive member of the opposite sex, at least for a human, I believe. I'm still studying such things in xenopsychology." The black-haired young man looked to Naruto for support, but the blonde said, "I was intentionally ignoring the situation at the time." Allison laughed and Senva was amused. They were both enjoying teasing the boys. Stardate 2267.317, Tara and Sovar's house, garage. Naruto burned the midnight oil and got most of his homework done the night before. He caught a transport home and was looking over Sovar's bike he was planning to restore. The blonde contacted Kesh, who had been shanghaied into helping his father, but Clara was available and soon was knocking on the garage door where Naruto was looking over the bike specifications with a critical eye on his datapad. Naruto was jolted out of his thoughts and saw Clara standing there beaming at him. His brain promptly short-circuited at that point. Rather than her usual blue robes, Clara was wearing a snug gray sleeveless work shirt and matching pants. Her long brown hair was pulled back in a tight braid so she could work. Her very practical work outfit also showed off all the teenage girl's well-developed feminine curves. Being a hybrid, Naruto was of several minds. Naruto's logical, Vulcan side thought, Clara is quite the mammal. His teenage boy side thought, she's been hiding all that under those loose blue robes? The blonde boy's base instincts simply screamed woman. Clara noticed Naruto's heated stare and asked, "Is everything all right, Naruto?" She was feeling a little self-conscious under his scrutiny. Naruto mentally slapped himself and said, "I guess I've never seen you wear anything but blue. It took me off guard." Clara said, "I guess I really do favor blue as it is my favorite. This outfit seemed more logical given how dirty we are going to get." "Ah, of course," agreed with Naruto. "I will be driven to distraction with all those soft curves on display. I need to focus on the bike." According to the specs, all we should have had to do to drop the engine was disconnect all the wiring and remove those 4 bolts, said Clara in a puzzled tone. "Why is it unmoving?" "Perhaps it's rusted together," said Naruto from under the bike. He had a work light and was looking at the underside of the ion repulsor engine. "Clara, there are 4 metal straps holding the engine to the right side of the frame still. It's all bent. I don't think they belong there." Clara slid underneath the bike with Naruto and started comparing the straps to the diagram on her tablet. As she looked at the puzzle, Naruto couldn't help but notice how beautiful she was becoming. Her lips looked so soft, thought the blonde. The brown-haired girl said, "Naruto, the right frame is supposed to be straight and is bent inwards." She turned her face to him and said, "Those straps are a non-standard modification, I'm afraid. They need to be removed." Naruto stared at the straps and said, "More of father's work, no doubt. Let me get a couple of adjustable wrenches and some rust remover. These straps are rusted solid." Clara was soon sitting back while Naruto battled with the infernal straps, as he called them. After nearly a half an hour of struggling, Naruto removed the last strap only to find the engine still wouldn't lower. Both teens were getting frustrated at this point. "Take a break and let me look under there with the diagrams of Naruto," said Clara. "I'll run some comparisons. It's probably the bent frame." Naruto sighed as he slid out from under the bike covered in grease and dirt. He had a big stripe across his face that looked hysterical to Clara. She hid her tiny smile behind the datapad and said, "You might want to wipe your face," as she handed him a towel. The brunette quickly slipped under the bike where she could silently laugh at Naruto's expense and look at the diagrams. "The bent frame is in the way, and we have no tools to bend it back," reported Clara. "Are there any tools designed for such a task?" Naruto glared at the obstinate frame and said, "I'll bend it back myself, Clara. Stand back." Once Clara was clear, he braced himself and used chakra to enhance his strength. Clara watched as she admired Naruto's muscles ripple under his black t-shirt. All that lean muscle and those amazing blue eyes. She was on the verge of drooling when the frame slowly but surely started to give and finally was bent back roughly where it was supposed to be. "There's," said Naruto. "Let's try dropping the engine now, Clyra." Shaken out of her stupor, Clyra blushed and said, "Hold on and I'll lower the jack." Then the engine finally dropped. Both teenagers breathed a sigh of relief. "Let's take a break," said Naruto tiredly. "I am hungry." "I'll bet you are too." The pair cleaned up a bit and ate some lunch out in the garage. That was when Naruto's family got home from shopping and Sovar said, "How is it going, kids? It looks like you got the engine out easily enough." Naruto gave his father a withering stare and said, "Once we got those 4 rusted, corroded straps off and I bent the right side of the frame out again, it was a simple task to drop the engine." "How did you manage to mangle the mainframe that badly?" "It was a physics experiment," said Terra. "Your father tried to ram an immovable object and ended up in the hospital with a concussion. I didn't want to be late for a date with your mother and hit a boulder when I took a turn too fast," admitted Sovar. "A boulder?" asked Naruto dumbfounded. "And how are you still alive, father?" Terra had humor in her onyx eyes. "We had a pleasant date in the emergency room. Your father was back on his bike within a week though. That's when I strapped it back together to make sure the engine didn't vibrate its way free," explained Sovar. Seeing the deadpan stares of disbelief from Naruto and Clyra, Sovar said, "I think I'll get these groceries put away." He quickly went into the house. "I'd best help Sovar with the groceries," said Terra with a twinkle in her eye. "You never know what kind of trouble he will get into with Talek helping him." Later that afternoon, Naruto escorted Clyra home and they agreed to continue their work tomorrow. Naruto came home and thoroughly scrubbed himself clean in the shower before he joined his family for dinner and a few rounds of poker afterwards. "You should come home more, Naruto. It's not as fun to play Kelto without you here with me," said Talek as she drew a card with a cute look of total concentration on her face. Naruto drew a card himself. "I wish I could, Talek, but school at the Vulcan Science Academy keeps me very busy and I don't have as much spare time as I'd like." Talek replied, "It's still more fun when you are here." "Oh." She laid her cards on the table. "I call, straight flush." "Beat that," said the little girl triumphantly. Everyone else's face faltered, utterly crushed by a 5-year-old, lamented Naruto and his parents. Clyra's house. The blue-wearing girl was thoroughly clean and had a late dinner with her parents. They were discussing the rather dire situation with Arev. Clyra's mother Anak and her husband Fowler were concerned about their daughter's safety. "It would be in your best interest if we arranged a new bonding due to your broken engagement with Arev," said Fowler. Anak explained, "Your father and I believe that Arev might consider you off limits if a new betrothal is in place. He would be honor-bound to leave you alone." Clyra frowned. "That's assuming that Arev has a shred of honor left. Which I truly doubt." "We need to keep you safe at any rate," said Fowler. "Your mother and I are going to start looking around for a suitable mate for you. It may take time but dash." "What about Naruto Mfao?" asked Clyra. "He is my dear friend and has never been bonded. He is strong and brilliant. Naruto is already in the Vulcan Science Academy. I would be honored to have him as my husband." "Naruto is a very good young man, but he is a hybrid, my dear," said Anuak. "Does this not bother you?" "It doesn't bother me in the least," said Clyra. "I cannot see the logic behind you judging him for such a thing. Naruto is a wonderful person and can keep me protected from Arev." Fowler said, "We had not considered Naruto. It never occurred to us that you would be interested in him that way. We thought, well, never mind what we thought. We will talk to Sovar and Terra and see what they think," said Anuak. "They may have someone in mind for young Naruto. We will find out, okay? I believe that Naruto and I would be well suited to each other," said Clyra. "Please speak with his parents seriously. I would be very pleased to be betrothed to Naruto." Fowler said, "We will talk to them this week then." Terra and Sovar's house. After Talek went to bed, Naruto was discussing his dreams with Terra and Sovar. He also demonstrated some of the assassination moves he'd learned by going through the motions with his father.
Sovar scratched his chin.
There is little doubt in my mind each of those moves is suited for a professional assassin.
As disturbing as it seems, your ancestors took killing very seriously and were exceptionally skilled at it. Each of the 12 unarmed moves you demonstrated are 100% lethal. The ones with weapons sound even more deadly, said Tara uneasily.
Even when you were a little boy, you had remarkable dexterity with a knife.
Perhaps it would be best to train you in the traditional Vulcan weaponry used in ceremonies. Your father is very well versed in their use.
You want me to train with the old weapons? Asked Naruto, surprised.
Sovar nodded. I agree with your mother.
You already have knowledge, and if you find yourself in a situation with a weapon, you should know how to use it properly. That way you won't injure yourself or others by accident because of lack of familiarity. I'll start training you with swords and knives in your month break after your first trimester of classes is over, since you are already familiar with those from your memories.
You already are superb with a bow.
I can train you in the Lurpa asterisk and the Onwun asterisk as time passes. Naruto nodded and said with a sigh, that seems like a logical solution. It appears that my race was quite violent. Tara ruffled her son's hair affectionately. Your people on Tori Prime 4 destroyed themselves in a war.
You already know this.
Besides, you are a hybrid, so you know better than to repeat their mistakes.
Moreover, you behave like a normal, logical young Vulcan. Knowing extra fighting skills does not mean you're following in their footsteps. Consider it extra survival insurance for my son.
Stardate 2267.318, Plyra's house. Plyra awoke bright and early and was looking forward to spending another day with Naruto. The brunette got up and had breakfast with her parents before she received a text message from Naruto saying he would arrive within the hour.
Excellent timing, thought Plyra aloud. I have plenty of time to pick out some work clothes.
Changing into a snug black shirt and pants, she thought, I really need to get some blue work clothes. Naruto soon arrived and exchanged greetings with Plyra's parents before Plyra came out of her room and short-circuited Naruto's poor brain again. Naruto coughed and said, I found a shop in the old quarter that has the parts in stock to replace the damaged frame pieces. Kesh is still busy with his father, so it will just be us, Plyra.
The brunette nodded happily. That's just fine, Naruto. We work very well together. Plyra was beaming inside.
Kesh is my friend, but spending the whole day together alone with Naruto is the best.
City of Shirkar, Old Quarter.
Naruto and Plyra came into a parts supply store that specialized in speeder bikes. They realized it was actually more of a junked bike emporium when they arrived. A large and muscular Vulcan greeted them when they arrived.
Welcome to Mahawk's Speeders. I'm Mahawk. What can I do for you young people today?
Naruto got out his tablet and said, I need a right mainframe engine support strut for a VST-220R.
The blonde showed the specs showing the bent frame and Mahawk raised an eyebrow.
May I ask how it got that bent? Asked Mahawk.
That can't possibly be ridden safely.
It was in a wreck involving a boulder about 20 years ago, explained the blonde.
We are restoring it from the frame up. Mahawk said, that's quite an undertaking.
I've got the parts, but you'll need a plasma torch to weld it properly.
Come on, I'll show you too.
As they walked along, Naruto introduced himself and Plyra.
Mahawk raised his eyebrows. Fao. You wouldn't happen to be related to Taram Fao, would you?
Naruto nodded. Taram Fao is my mother.
My father is Sovarm Fao. Mahawk said, that's quite a coincidence.
I went to school with your mother at the Shirkar Primary School. You bear a striking resemblance to her. Soon they were standing in front of two VST-220 carcasses.
This one is a VST-220, explained Mahawk, pointing at a blue frame. He then pointed at a brown one. That one is a VST-220R.
The R was optimized for higher performance, but the frames are identical. The 220 frame is in better shape, so I would advise getting the frame parts you need from it. If you need engine or air brake parts, you'll want to pull them from the 220R.
Naruto nodded and said, we'll focus on restoring the frame first. The engine and electrical systems are next.
Mahak was kind enough to use his own torch to cut the part off that they needed for a small service fee. It wasn't long before Naruto and Lyra were on their way back to Naruto's house to mark where they needed to install the new piece. Then they needed to figure out someone who knew how to use a plasma torch.
A plasma torch? Asked Sovar. I've never used one. Why do you think I used those straps to begin with? I think Kesh's father Skan probably has one since he is always working on their family's hovercraft.
I'll give Kesh a call and find out, said Lyra. Lyra stepped outside and Naruto sat down to mark the places they needed to cut and install the new frame piece.
Lyra came back 10 minutes later and said, Kesh said his father has one, but we have to bring the frame there somehow because the torch isn't mobile.
Kesh lives over 2 streets, right? Asked Naruto.
Seeing Lyra nod, the blonde said, without the engine this frame weighs nothing. I could carry it.
Lyra's eyes got wide and said, are you sure, Naruto?
It weighs quite a few kilograms.
Naruto stood up and effortlessly lifted the frame with one arm.
It won't be an issue.
We'll need to remove all the wiring and the air brakes to weld though.
I don't want anything to be damaged by the plasma torch welding. Let's call Kesh back and see if his father could weld it for us next weekend.
Okay, let me call Kesh, said Lyra as she walked back outside. Naruto had his eyes locked on the gentle sway of Lyra's hips and thought, she's gorgeous from behind as well. He kept an eye on her while she was talking to Kesh on her communicator. I should stop staring, but she's so smooth that Lyra caught his eye and waved at him. Naruto blushed and waved back before he turned back to his work. I hope she didn't notice me gawking, he thought, embarrassed. He must be eager to hear what Kesh's father says, thought Lyra as she waited on the communicator. I need to impress upon mother and father to talk to Sovar and Tara.
Sovar is so kind and Tara is so smart. They are very admirable people. There you are, Kesh. What did your father say?
Lyra came back into the garage and said, Skan has agreed to do it if we can get the frame over there by Saturday afternoon.
Is that acceptable?
That's excellent, Lyra, exclaimed Naruto. Please convey my gratitude to Kesh and his father. We can spend the rest of the afternoon removing these air brakes and the various attachments to the frame. The brunette girl thanked Kesh over the communicator and then the 2 teens sat down together and started stripping parts off the frame so it could be fully restored.
Naruto escorted Lyra back to her house a few hours later.
After cleaning up and having dinner with his family, Naruto caught a transport back to the Vulcan Science Academy to relax and get a good night's sleep before class tomorrow.
Stardate 2267.319, Vulcan Science Academy.
Personal log, my weekend was quite eventful, but squeezing it in consistently with the amount of homework I have could make things difficult. Last night my ancestral memories were of knife and sword katas.
That was the name of the practice forms my ancestors used.
Compared to the many assassination moves I've been dreaming about, swordplay is peaceful and serene. On the subject of peace, it is my fervent hope that there are no wild animals running through the halls this morning. Last Friday I had to avoid the Academy media team through a series of stealth maneuvers that my friend Jeff Baker likened to playing cat and mouse. I didn't get the inference at first, it's a Terran phrase, but once it was explained to me it was an apt description. The media team neglected to look up when I was on the ceiling above them. Hopefully today will prove to be a pleasant, normal day of classes.
Tara and Sovar's house. Naruto's parents were very surprised that they received a call that morning from Lyra's parents, Thaler and Anuak Tolaris.
Generally, Tara and Sovar were on good terms with the Tolaris couple, but they weren't particularly close to them. Anuak acted with a sense of urgency, so Tara invited them over for tea that evening to discuss whatever was on their minds.
What do you think is going on, Tara? Asked Sovar over breakfast. You don't suppose it has something to do with that boy Arev again, do you? Tiara looked perplexed. I don't know.
Perhaps they are concerned for Lyra's safety on the weekends. I don't think they realize it, but she couldn't have a better protector her age than Naruto. Maybe she got too dirty working on that bike and ruined her clothes, commented Talik.
Sovar gave a tiny smile. Somehow, I don't think that's it, Talik. Your reasoning is a possibility though. We will keep it in mind, said Tara fondly. I guess we will find out this evening. Vulcan Science Academy. Naruto was in metaphorical hell.
The first session with genetics and biology had been simple enough, though Jeff got called upon, so he was all flustered.
He'd been staring at an attractive female classmate instead of paying attention.
History with Professor Seppel resulted in a massive writing assignment that Naruto believed was some sort of record for undergraduates. I can't believe he chose for us to pick a random clan to write a 100-page report on by Friday. I'm lucky that I already find my own clan fascinating, and I doubt anyone else will write about them Fao clan.
Most will choose an old dynastic clan because information is readily available.
Geography had been equally bad with a 50-page report on the fire plains. It was Professor Storn's pet subject, so it wasn't a report that could easily be blown off. Professor Storn has probably forgotten more about the fire plains than I will ever learn in my lifetime.
He is a walking encyclopedia. Naruto sighed.
The blonde was now in logic and philosophy with Professor Tlon. Unfortunately, she had a keen interest in Naruto's, typically Vulcan, views. She seemed to have a deep-seated fascination with hybrids and had been disappointed when Sarek and Lady Amanda's son Spock didn't attend the Vulcan Science Academy. Needless to say, Naruto was now in her sights.
I think Professor Tlon is disappointed that I'm just an ordinary Vulcan for the most part.
She keeps asking me questions and I believe she expects some sort of radical answers.
Just because I have blonde hair doesn't mean I'm a revolutionary by nature. Hearing the chime, Naruto thought to himself, thank the gods it's lunchtime. Hopefully this afternoon will be less stressful. Terra and Sovar's house. Anuak and Faller Tolaris arrived promptly at 6 p.m. for tea. Terra welcomed them and both couples exchanged formal greetings. Thank you for inviting us into your home, said Anuak.
We apologize for such short notice.
Is your little one around?
Sovar replied, Talak is keeping herself entertained in her room while we adults talk.
It will be fine. Terra said, when you called this morning you had a sense of urgency in your voice.
It concerned us.
Is Tlyra all right?
Faller said, Tlyra is fine, but since we broke her betrothal, she isn't bonded. We are concerned that Arev will return and try to take her by force.
Whatever happened to Arev? Asked Sovar.
He ran away from home and has not been seen since, said Anuak.
We are good friends of his parents and they indicated he was a danger to Tlyra in their opinion.
For obvious reasons we are very troubled.
I understand, how can we help? Asked Terra.
If she needs a place to stay over for a few days she would be welcomed.
No, it's nothing like that though, we thank you, said Faller.
I suppose it would be best to be direct. Tlyra isn't bonded and it is our hope that if she were to become betrothed properly that Arev would stay away because he is honor-bound to respect a new bonding.
Terra raised an eyebrow. That is highly illogical.
If Arev has completely rebelled against logical reason, then I see him doing the same with his sense of honor.
We realize this, but we want to protect Tlyra any way we can, explained Anuak. Terra was thinking about a logical counterargument when Sovar put his hand on her knee.
He said, I believe all parents sometimes place logic aside when it comes to their children's welfare.
Thank you, said Anuak.
We were wondering if your son Naruto is bonded.
Tlyra says he is not.
Naruto hasn't been bonded since he was 7 years old, and his bondmate died in an earthquake along with her parents, said Terra in a hollow voice.
Faller sighed. How tragic. Did you not seek a new betrothal after his Kazwan? This time it was Sovar's turn to sigh.
Our family tried to make betrothal arrangements on 5 separate occasions and each was a complete failure. Naruto finally decided it was better to be alone and dropped the subject entirely.
But what about his pawn Far? Asked Anuak. Does he not realize he could literally die?
He is taking it far too lightly. It is a difficult situation because Naruto is a hybrid, said Terra. Many potential mates do not wish to be with him for that reason.
Tlyra does, said Faller. Everyone was silent for a few moments after he dropped that bomb.
Anuak explained quietly, we informed Tlyra that we had to start looking for a new mate for her and she was very insistent that she wants Naruto Fao to be her betrothed.
Bother Faller and I were surprised as we didn't realize she felt this way or this strongly about it. Clara spoke very highly of both of you and that she would be deeply honored to become Naruto's wife.
Fowler added, we knew they were dear friends but assumed Clara would not want Naruto as a mate.
We were very wrong. It seems Clara exclusively wants Naruto to be her mate. Do you think Naruto would be willing? If Naruto is willing, then we would gladly give our blessings, said Tara as she held Sovar's hand.
I knew there was an attraction, but I'm surprised they would propose such an arrangement.
Sovar nodded. I know Clara is dear to Naruto, so perhaps this could work out. I hope so. Chapter 8 Shadow Clones. Naruto, Infinity Divide. Shadow Clones. Blanket disclaimer, I do not own Naruto or Star Trek. Author's note. Naruto's famous jutsu makes its first appearance. This is Chapter 8. Enjoy. Last time.
Naruto hasn't been bonded since he was 7 years old, and his bondmate died in an earthquake along with her parents, said Tara in a hollow voice.
Fowler sighed. How tragic. Did you not seek a new betrothal after his Kazuan? This time it was Sovar's turn to sigh.
Our family tried to make betrothal arrangements on 5 separate occasions, and each was a complete failure.
Naruto finally decided it was better to be alone and dropped the subject entirely. But what about his pawn far? Asked Anuak. Does he not realize he could literally die?
He is taking it far too lightly.
It is a difficult situation because Naruto is a hybrid, said Tara.
Many potential mates do not wish to be with him for that reason.
Clara does, said Fowler. Everyone was silent for a few moments after he dropped that bomb.
Anuak explained quietly, we informed Clara that we had to start looking for a new mate for her and she was very insistent that she wants Naruto to be her betrothed.
Both Fowler and I were surprised as we didn't realize she felt this way or this strongly about it. Clara spoke very highly of both of you and that she would be deeply honored to become Naruto's wife.
Fowler added, we knew they were dear friends but assumed Clara would not want Naruto as a mate.
We were very wrong. It seems Clara exclusively wants Naruto to be her mate. Do you think Naruto would be willing? If Naruto is willing, then we would gladly give our blessings, said Tara as she held Sovar's hand.
I knew there was an attraction, but I'm surprised they would propose such an arrangement.
Sovar nodded. I know Clara is dear to Naruto, so perhaps this could work out. I hope so. Chapter 8. Stardate 2267.319, Planet Vulcan, Shirkar District, Vulcan Science Academy.
It was late Monday night and something unusual was afoot in the suite of Naruto. His friends had called it a night after their usual study session, but the blonde was still wide awake.
Shadow Clone Jutsu, said Naruto as 4 identical copies of the blonde appeared. Naruto blinked and said, excellent, success at last. Gentlemen, let's put a dent in these essays.
We will start with 20 pages each by topic and then we will dispel one at a time so we will have one continuous paper.
Agreed, said all the clones as they began dividing the work up in a logical fashion.
Naruto managed to procure multiple tablets for study groups so there were enough for his clones to use.
The next morning, Naruto exhaustedly made his daily log entry.
Personal log, my experiment in shadow clone multitasking was a success but unfortunately has put a great deal of mental strain upon me. I believe that creating 1 or 2 clones at a time should be my maximum until my brain adapts to the stress of them dispelling and returning their information to me in numbers. As it is, I am returning the spare study tablets except for one which a single clone will be using today to polish and refine my essay on the Vulcan's history. Currently it is obvious that the essay was written in 5 parts and therefore needs to be blended into one document.
Shadow clone multitasking also has many other applications which I have yet to discover.
I suspect my ancestral memories will surface about this now that I can actually perform the technique. Suffice it to say I am exhausted from staying up all night writing. It would be more logical to plan my time more wisely, but I was quite caught up in my shadow clone experiment and did not wish to stop. The excitement of my discovery somewhat ruined my routine daily patterns, and I will have to watch for that sort of thing in the future. It is my fervent hope that I do not fall asleep in class today as I am totally worn out. Naruto closed his tablet and made 2 fresh clones to continue work on his history essay throughout the day.
I'll trust you gentlemen to conceal yourselves should any unexpected visitors arrive.
Seeing his clones nod in assent, Naruto went down to the Western dormitory cafeteria for a hearty breakfast with his friends that normally ate down there. He usually ate a light breakfast alone in his suite so he could meditate and reflect before classes started.
Western dormitory cafeteria.
The blonde dragged himself into the breakfast line and tiredly ordered his meal. He saw a slightly surprised Jeff wave him over to sit with his friends. Naruto sat down and Allison delicately said, "You look like hell, Blondie."
What happened to you?
The whiskered hybrid sighed at the redhead's usual lack of tact and said, "I stayed up all night working on an essay paper."
I fear it was an illogical thing to do upon reflection.
Jeff smiled and said, "We all get caught up in schoolwork sometimes, Naruto. I could tell you were still going full steam when we called it quits last night." Seeing Naruto raise a questioning eyebrow, Allison chuckled and said, "Full steam refers to going at full power or enthusiasm, see? It's an old Terran phrase referring to steam-powered engines." "Your esoteric phrases can be confusing, Jeff, but I am grateful for the increase in my vocabulary," said Naruto tiredly.
Are you going to be okay for class? Asked Jeff. You look exhausted.
It would be unwise to miss class, said Naruto. Besides, Professor Tpar is quite strict about attendance.
That she is, agreed Allison.
She's also very strict about tardiness. Then the redhead grinned. Besides, Jeff will panic and flunk out of genetics and biology if you aren't there to guide him, Naruto.
Jeff glared at his red-headed companion and said, I'm not that bad off.
If you need to look at my notes this evening, feel free, Naruto.
I thank you, Jeff, said Naruto. We'd best get to class. Naruto's entire day was fatiguing for the young hybrid.
It was true that Vulcans could get by without sleep for days on end, but Naruto simply wasn't used to it, and with the added mental stress of his shadow clone's memories, Naruto felt like he'd been up for a week regardless. After class he went straight to bed and fell into a deep sleep. Unusually, he found himself dreaming about Tyra instead of his usual ancestral memories. Tyra was silhouetted by the sun in the forge as she danced in gold mesh see-through swimwear which showed off all her curves perfectly. It was a slow, sensual dance, and the desert wind flowed around her as she slowly spun, causing her long hair to fan out behind her. Her golden clothing glittered in the setting sunlight and made Naruto want to caress that softness more and more. She was beautiful and enchanting to Naruto as the blonde stared in unabashed awe at all those amazing curves moving in perfect time to the music that the winds in the forge played only for her.
Tyra looked at Naruto with heated eyes and silently beckoned him forward to dance with her.
Naruto woke up feeling incredibly hot and aroused. He'd never felt this way before and got up to get a drink of water to calm himself down. He imagined how her soft lips would feel against his own and wondered if she felt the same before he banished his thoughts away to calm himself.
It's 3 a.m., he groaned tiredly. I need to get back to sleep.
In the back of his mind, Naruto wanted to see more of his dreams of Tyra's fantasy dance, but fortunately for his sleep-addled mind, Naruto slept peacefully the rest of the night. Naruto woke up feeling completely refreshed and, for lack of better phrases, energized. I feel as if I could take on the entire world today. I must record this in my personal log for later assessment. I believe this will be a good day, he thought aloud. After recording his daily log entry, Naruto was surprised to receive a communication from home. It was Tara. Good morning, mother. Your call was unexpected but not unwelcome, said the blonde hybrid.
Tara nodded and said, Good morning to you, my son. Do you have a moment to talk?
I can call back at a more convenient time later if you wish.
It is fine, mother. I have time, answered Naruto. What would you like to talk about?
Tara said to her son, There are matters to discuss in person, Naruto.
Will you be available this evening after your classes are over?
There was urgency in her onyx eyes and Naruto knew this was important.
Well, I am started Naruto, thinking of homework. Wait a moment. I have all the time in the world.
I can leave a shadow clone here to study with the others and can go home personally.
Of course, I have time. Do you need me to take the 6 p.m. shuttle home? Asked Naruto. Your father or I will pick you up at 6, said Tara. It will be quicker that way.
Alright, said the blonde, surprised. Why such urgency?
All will be explained tonight, my son, said the onyxite beauty.
I believe this will be a very positive thing, so there is no need for apprehension.
I will see you tonight.
After bidding Tara farewell, Naruto reflected a bit on his morning and then headed to his first period, genetics and biology, where he found his friend Jeff eagerly admiring the females in the class. The blonde mentally groaned to himself, "Jeff Baker, what are we going to do with you?"
Fifth period, self-defense.
You should become the captain of our Shan competition team instead of me, Naruto, said Galsh.
Instructor Aloran said you are almost a match for him and he's a second-level Shan master. Besides, you are constantly improving even against him. It seems logical to me for you to compete.
Naruto sighed as they finished their Shan routine. I'm afraid my academics must take precedence.
I've never been in a real martial arts competition in my life.
All my training has been from my father and mother.
Aloran was listening to his students' banter.
He was a practitioner of several martial arts, but from what little he'd seen, Naruto's raw power with graith was positively bone-crushing. Naruto is unbelievable and his father is a 6th-level master at graith. It really would do Naruto some good to compete and grow as a martial artist.
I have to wonder what he really can do.
Naruto, there are open competitions as well as team ones.
We're hosting an open competition next month. I recommend you try it.
There will be competitors from schools all over Vulcan.
There are different martial arts practiced besides Shan.
There are even graith and Pan-ifla competitions. One of the female students said, I'm surprised something as brutal as graith is still allowed in competitions. I saw a match once and it was quite savage.
Master Aloran replied, graith is an ancient and respected martial art.
Admittedly, it is considered violent by modern standards, but it is part of our culture. I tried my hand at it back when I was in my teens.
What happened? Asked another student inquisitively.
I didn't have the upper body strength necessary to use the art effectively, admitted Aloran. After 3 months, my master and I agreed I was better suited for Shan and Pan-ifla, among others. Allison and Senba were listening to the discussion with the rest of the class when Allison whispered to her friend, for some reason I think Naruto could do graith. I've seen him move stuff easily that would require major upper body strength.
He's like a tiger even against Galsh and Instructor Aloran. Considering the way Blondie knocked that graith senseless, I'll bet there is a lot we've never seen. Instructor Aloran and Galsh are right. Naruto really ought to compete.
I agree, said Senva. As Naruto's friends, we should encourage him to try it out.
Naruto's sweet.
After class, Naruto created a shadow clone to study with his friends in Allison's suite. It was Allison's turn. In the meantime, the original Naruto dressed in his regular robes and went out to the school entrance where he saw Sovar waiting in the family hovercraft. The blonde was a bit surprised. It is good to see you, father, but aren't you usually at work still at this time? Asked Naruto as he strapped himself in the passenger seat.
Sovar nodded. Normally I am, but this matter is important, and I need to be there.
I took off work early.
The blonde raised an eyebrow in the exact same manner Tara always did. And what is this important matter that you and mother are referring to, father?
Sovar reached over and ruffled his son's blonde hair.
Be patient.
You will see soon enough. With that, they took off back towards Shirkar City.
Tara and Sovar's house.
Tara was pacing nervously. She rarely got this wound up about things, outside of scientific discoveries, but Naruto finding a mate was of great importance. She and Sovar agreed that talking to Naruto themselves before involving Clyra's parents was the most logical course of action. Once matters were discussed, they would, presumably, call Anuak and Faller with the good news. I can't think of any logical reason that Naruto would refuse, but I can't help but worry. Naruto was terribly distraught about the subject and gave up, so it may be like opening an old wound for him. She heard the family hovercraft pull up out front and heard Talak say from the front window, "Mama, Daddy is home with Naruto."
Did Naruto come home to play with me? Tara came over and scooped up her daughter fondly. Daddy and I need to talk seriously with your big brother and brought him home to do so. Can you give us some private time with Naruto, little one?
You mean play in my room for a little while? Asked the little girl.
Terra nodded and said, it would be appreciated if you could keep yourself entertained for a bit. Naruto came in about that time with Sovar. He said, Mother, Talak, how are you this evening? Talak said with big onyx eyes, can you play Kelto with me after you finish talking to Mama and Daddy Naruto?
The blonde wanted to chuckle.
How about I show you a new trick I learned with chakra instead?
The little girl looked surprised.
What kind of a trick? She asked. Naruto winked and said, watch carefully, Talak. Shadow clone jutsu.
Another Naruto appeared and said, I'll play with you while the original me talks with mother and father.
Talak exclaimed, you can make real copies of yourself, Naruto?
Pretty much, said Naruto. But my shadow clones only last a few hours and can't take hits like I can, so make sure to be careful. The shadow clone said, let's go to your room and do something together, Talak.
Talak was excited. Okay, Naruto's shadow clone, let's go.
Naruto's clone picked up Talak and they went back to her room to play.
Said Sovar. I'm in disbelief. Terra paused and said, that's the most intriguing technique of Naruto, when did you learn it?
The blonde smirked. I was able to use it successfully for the first time Monday night. I have another back at the academy studying with my friends. Everything that a shadow clone learns I also learn when they dispel, so technically, I'm still doing my homework even though I'm here. Terra's brain was whirring at warp speed at the myriad possibilities of the shadow clone technique.
This is absolutely fascinating, she exclaimed. The uses aren't limited just to studying, why it's dash. Sovar interrupted his wife before she took off into scientific la-la land. Terra, we have something important to discuss with Naruto, remember?
The Vulcan scientist all but had to smack herself to get her mind back on track.
Terra could tell Naruto was quite amused at her actions but decided to let it slide. Come in and sit with us, Naruto. Let us have some tea together and talk.
Your friend Clyra Tolaris has broken her betrothal to Arev, as you know, said Terra. Her parents Valor and Anuak are concerned that Arev may try to harm her.
Naruto frowned and set down his tea. If Arev shows his face near her, I will crush him.
He is a despicable person.
Sovar nodded and said, I understand your reaction, but there is another answer. The blonde hybrid raised an eyebrow and asked, what do you mean, father?
Terra said gently, Clyra's parents want to get her betrothed again because they hope that Arev will feel honor-bound to leave her alone.
Naruto replied, that's completely illogical. Arev is twisted and has no honor.
He was lying to Clyra as far back as when we were in our first year of primary school.
Sovar raised his eyebrows. I had no idea. I suppose it's a moot point now, said Naruto as he took a sip of tea.
It is hard to fathom that they are seeking a new mate out for Clyra based on faulty logic, though.
What does Clyra think? Terra gave her son a very minimalist smile. Clyra insisted to her parents that she wishes for you to be her mate, Naruto.
Valor and Anuak asked us for a formal betrothal last night, but we told them we wished to discuss it with you before we gave our approval. She reached out and held Naruto's, suddenly shaking hands. You will have our full blessings if you wish to be bonded to Clyra, my son, said Sovar as he placed his hand on top of Terra's.
The blonde swallowed hard. He had tears welling in his eyes, though they did not fall. Then Clyra is to be my mate, he choked out. If you wish it, said Terra gently. Naruto blinked and the tears slid down his cheeks. I would be honored to have Clyra Tolaris as my wife. Sovar gave his own tiny smile.
You have no idea how glad we are to hear that, Naruto. Your mother and I are very proud of you, my son.
Vulcan Science Academy, Allison Fairbanks Suite.
Naruto's shadow clone was listening to his friends as they encouraged him to try out for the martial arts competition. Seriously, Naruto, you could kick some major ass if you entered, exclaimed Allison.
I'll bet you could take first place. Naruto gave his red-headed friend a withering stare. You really aren't going to let this go, are you, Allison?
Allison shook her head.
Nope. I want to see you show your stuff. Tell him Jeff, Senva.
Jeff said, well, I've never seen you spar, but since you took out that graith in one shot, I'd certainly like to watch.
It seems very logical for you to test your limits so you can improve, commented Senva in a reasonable tone. Few offer a consistent challenge for you here with the exception of Instructor Aloran.
You should take this opportunity to grow and make some new friends from other schools competing.
Naruto finally caved and said, very well, I will look into it provided it doesn't interfere with my homework schedule. I'll have to polish up with father and mother on weekends if I'm going to compete for real. Awesome, said Allison exuberantly. I wonder what the prize for first place is. Senva asked, what do you mean by prize?
The competitors all enter for the honor of competing, not for any sort of material gain.
That would be illogical.
The redhead's sweat dropped.
You mean you don't even get a trophy?
Sometimes they award medallions of achievement at higher levels, but I don't know about this one, explained Naruto. Sometimes competitions are held to advance one's levels as well.
Well, that kind of sucks, muttered Allison sullenly. Jeff said, I still think you should try to beat Naruto.
The blonde hybrid raised an eyebrow and said, there is no point in competing if you don't aim to win.
That's the spirit, cheered Allison. Terra and Sovar's house.
Naruto opened the door and welcomed the Tolaris family to his home.
Clara gripped him in a tight hug before he could react. He reciprocated a moment later and felt her warm softness against him. She whispered to him as they embraced, I am so happy, Naruto-fao. We shall be husband and wife. As they basked in each other's warmth, Naruto whispered back, I am so glad you chose me, Clara. I will always keep you safe.
Such a display of emotionalism was generally frowned upon, but both sets of parents were very pleased for their children.
It seems that this is a logical and beneficial match for our children, said Terra in a contented tone as she watched Naruto lead Clara into the house by hand. Sovar held his wife's hand affectionately and said, indeed it is. Naruto and Clara were sitting on cushions beside each other while their parents discussed the bonding ceremony. There is a temple in the old quarter right here in Shirkar City where the Kun-at-la asterisk can be performed, said Terra. I see no reason for a big ceremony for bonding. The wedding perhaps, but not the bonding. Anuak had a different opinion. Do you not want our extended families to be there for the Kun-at-la? The temple is a very nice and historical place, but I don't know if it will fit dozens of people. Sovar replied, you yourself said haste was a necessity. I believe a small ceremony for the bonding would be to our advantage. It's not logical to make huge arrangements at the last minute.
Anuak looked like she wanted to argue, but Fowler patted her hand.
We want the Kun-at-la to be as soon as possible to protect Clara from Arev. The Mphas are right.
Let us settle for a small ceremony now so we can plan a proper wedding later.
Clara's mother sighed. I suppose that is logical. Given the circumstances, it can't be helped. I'm sorry your bonding won't be a large event at Mount Salia * Clara. The brunette girl shook her head. All I care about is being bonded with Naruto.
We don't need a great deal of fanfare within our clans.
When is the Kun-at-la to take place?
Seeing her future daughter-in-law was more sensible than her mother Anuak, Terra said with approval in her tone, we will make the arrangements, Clara. The Shirkar temple isn't a terribly busy one, so probably we can do it in the next few weeks.
The sooner the better, said Fowler. If we can get in this weekend, I would be all for it. Anuak's eyes widened.
There would be so few family members that could make a trip on such short notice though.
Fowler replied, Clara's protection is paramount here, Anuak. Let us make haste. Clara seems quite content with a simple Kun-at-la ceremony, so we should be too.
Very well said, Anuak. She turned to Naruto. You haven't said a word to Naruto.
What do you think of all this? Naruto's blue eyes brightened.
As long as Clara and I are together, I'm not concerned how big or small the Kun-at-la ceremony is.
If it pleases Clara, then it is fine with me.
Besides, mother and father were wed in that temple, so it seems appropriate to at least have our bonding there.
Sovar nodded in approval.
Yes, our marriage was a small but very intimate one,
I'm glad you feel that way, Naruto. He touched 2 fingers with Terra affectionately and said, besides, the Shirkar temple is a very historical place being near the forge. Terra gave a tiny smile. I will go to the temple tomorrow to see what arrangements can be made. I will join you to see how many invitations we will need to send out, said Aniwak. Terra's eyebrow twitched in irritation. Why do I get the feeling that a half-dozen Fao clan members will make it and hundreds of the Tolaris clan members will be invited? Of course, we shall go together, Aniwak. We can meet in the morning after I drop Talak off at school. Vulcan Science Academy.
Naruto returned late to his suite that night and found his shadow clones hard at work doing homework. He was in exceptionally high spirits and wanted to share the good news with his friends. Unfortunately, he wasn't quite sure how Allison and Jeff would react since he knew human mating and wedding rituals were quite different. He was afraid they would share the news with everyone. After pondering the matter for a while, the blonde decided that it would be better to keep the news to himself. If I tell Senva I'm going through the Kun-at-la, then I'll have to explain the extenuating circumstances surrounding Arev, and that matter is best kept private. With those thoughts in mind, Naruto dispelled his 2 clones and went to bed. His last thought before he went to sleep was, now they want me in a martial arts competition? Gods, what next? Shirkar Old Quarter, Shirkar Temple. Thursday morning, Terra dropped off little Talak at the Shirkar Primary School and walked over to the Old Quarter, where she met up with Aniwak Tolaris at 10 a.m. sharp. Aniwak was looking over the ancient temple with an appraising eye to decide if it was good enough for her daughter to have her second Kun-at-la in. Aniwak sighed. Mount Saliya would be so much better, she thought aloud. Terra felt her eyebrow twitching again and said, Good morning to you, Aniwak. I see you got here before I did. Aniwak said, Ah. You are right on time. I was early, so I've been admiring this temple. I'm not quite sure that it is right for our children's Kun-at-la ceremony. It lacks the grandeur for such an occasion. Terra wanted to face palm. You'd think it was a shrine dedicated to the goddess Tvet** from the way she's staring at it. I assure you this temple is fine and has a long and distinguished history dating back to when Shirkar was still a kingdom in Surik's time. Let us go inside. It is quite beautiful. The 2 women were soon conversing with a junior priestess about arranging a Kun-at-la ceremony to take place. The young priestess went over to a podium and said, We can have the Kun-at-la for Naruto Fao and Tlyra Tolaris here 2 Saturdays from now at 9 a.m. in the main hall. Would this be suitable for both parties and their families? That would be excellent, said Terra. That is where my husband and I were wed. Aniwak twitched. How many people can be seated in the main hall? 150 can be seated there, Mrs. Tolaris, replied the priestess. Is this adequate enough for a daughter of the Tolaris clan? Pondered Aniwak. The Honorable Blue Dynasty usually has all of their ceremonies performed at Mount Saliya, but that could take months. Terra's onyx eyes were turning hard, and she said with forced politeness, Aniwak, I am sure this will be fine. Remember, we are on a timetable. Aniwak sighed, I suppose I could limit the guests to only 75 people. That would be half of the main hall. It will be difficult, but it is for Tlyra's sake. Only 75 people, thought Terra, disbelief. I might invite 20 tops and half won't show up, I expect. Well, let us sign the agreement then and arrange payment, said the onyxite beauty. There is much to do. Vulcan Science Academy. While Terra was dealing with the personal hell of Aniwak's apparent bourgeoisie tendencies, Naruto was dealing with the ever-inquisitive Professor Tlon in her logic and philosophy class. As always, she wanted his opinion as a hybrid on the teachings of Surik and others. Generally, she was disappointed that Naruto had very typically Vulcan views, but today was different. Today they were studying an emotionalist named Grellick that preceded Surik by about a century. Apparently, he was a pacifist and his writings influenced Surik early in his life. Naruto's opinion of Grellick wasn't all that high though. Tell us what you think of a young Grellick coming to the conclusion that peace was beneficial in a time of war, Naruto Fao, said Professor Tlon. Instructor, replied Naruto crisply. Grellick's writings and conclusions may have been great, but his morality and reasoning were not. He was of the upper class and hired others to fight in his place with his wealth.
Grelick wrote of pacifism but did nothing to promote it himself, having supported wars employing the lower classes.
He was a corrupt and cowardly politician, as history shows, and had the kingdom of Shirkar not been in a stable time of relative peace during his lifetime, his writings would likely have ended up leading Grelick to incarceration or worse. It is a great credit to Surik that he was able to distill the finer points of true pacifism from such a fraudulent promoter of the subject.
There were a number of gasps, and another student said, "Do you not consider Grelick the father of Vulcan pacifism?"
The blonde wanted to growl, and Professor Tlon was practically giddy, by Vulcan standards, with excitement. "Please clarify your views, Mr. Mfao," she said eagerly. Naruto explained, Grelick enjoyed watching gladiatorial fights and other blood sports for entertainment and sent countless mercenaries to their deaths without the slightest bit of respect for the lives of others. He never faced adversity and supported pacifism only where his safety was concerned. He was not a true pacifist or a realist.
Surik is the true father of Vulcan pacifism, and history has proven it many times over.
Grelick's writings were only from behind the safety of well-defended walls. Had he faced the trials that Surik did, he would have crumbled into dust? Read Grelick's personal life history as I have and tell me if you do not agree that this is a logical conclusion.
Do we have any historians in class that would care to support or refute Mr. Mfao's assertions about Grelick? Asked Professor Tlon enthusiastically.
The 5 students that were history majors in the class all agreed that Naruto's reasoning was both logical and sound. One of them summed up with, "It is difficult to refute Naruto's claims that while Grelick's writings were inspiring, he as a person was a fraud." After class, Professor Tlon said to Naruto, "You certainly brought up some interesting points about the philosopher Grelick today, Naruto.
Have you ever considered pursuing philosophy as a major?" Naruto wanted to faint.
Western dorm cafeteria.
"It must be tough being the teacher's pet," snickered Allison. "Maybe you should drop all your science courses and study philosophy and theology instead."
Naruto cringed at the concept. "Professor Tlon is a good person, but she is a bit too interested in me because I'm a hybrid, it seems. She seems to think my point of view would be radically different from others, even though I was raised as an ordinary Vulcan child. Being raised by a father who was a master of the martial arts and a mother who has 3 doctorates is hardly what I'd consider ordinary, Naruto," commented Senba in a conversational tone.
Naruto resisted the urge to face fault. "You are not helping at all, Senba." Senba sipped her tea. "You seem to be under the false impression that I was trying to help." Jeff and Allison burst into laughter, and Naruto just shook his head. Chapter 9: Ion Engines. Naruto, Infinity Divide. Ion Engines. Blanket disclaimer: I do not own Naruto or Star Trek. Author's note: how can Naruto get that old speeder bike running again? Here is Chapter 9. Enjoy. Last time.
After class, Professor Tlon said to Naruto, "You certainly brought up some interesting points about the philosopher Grelick today, Naruto.
Have you ever considered pursuing philosophy as a major?" Naruto wanted to faint.
Western dorm cafeteria.
"It must be tough being the teacher's pet," snickered Allison. "Maybe you should drop all your science courses and study philosophy and theology instead."
Naruto cringed at the concept. "Professor Tlon is a good person, but she is a bit too interested in me because I'm a hybrid, it seems. She seems to think my point of view would be radically different from others, even though I was raised as an ordinary Vulcan child. Being raised by a father who was a master of the martial arts and a mother who has 3 doctorates is hardly what I'd consider ordinary, Naruto," commented Senba in a conversational tone.
Naruto resisted the urge to face fault. "You are not helping at all, Senba." Senba sipped her tea. "You seem to be under the false impression that I was trying to help." Jeff and Allison burst into laughter, and Naruto just shook his head. Chapter 9. Stardate 2267.324, Planet Vulcan, Shirkar District, Vulcan Science Academy. It was very early Saturday morning and Naruto was up and running. He had big plans for the day with Tlyra and didn't wish to be late. Personal log: I am overflowing with happiness that Tlyra Tolaris and I will soon go through our Kun-at-la together. It is only 1 week away. This is all happening so fast.
I find it difficult to believe after all these years that I finally have an intended mate. Today I am multitasking with shadow clones to do homework with my friends while I head home to work on the speeder bike with Clyra. My studies are going well and the boost of positive energy within me has made my productivity go up. I currently can make 2 shadow clones per day without suffering the exhausting mental feedback I dealt with when I made 4. On another note, Professor Tlon has asked me to write a paper on the philosopher Grelek that she wishes to present to her colleagues. I should feel flattered, but to quote my friend Allison, it is a royal pain in the ass. I believe I used that in the proper context. At any rate, I hope this weekend will prove to be a productive one. Naruto closed his tablet, having made his daily entry, and packed it with his other things for the short shuttle trip back home to Shikar City. After stopping in at his house to drop his things off, Naruto got ready to set out towards Clyra's home. Clyra's house. The beautiful brunette girl was wearing her form-fitting gray work clothes and had just finished putting her hair in a sensible braid. I want to dress up nicely for Naruto, though it's not logical or practical given we are doing dirty physical labor. Mother doesn't like me doing this, but I enjoy working with my hands and more importantly working with Naruto. She admired herself in the mirror. There we are. Her communicator buzzed and she saw it was Naruto calling. With a tiny smile she answered her communicator. This is Clyra, good morning to you, Naruto. Naruto was happy to hear her voice. I am glad to hear you are up, Clyra. I thought I would come over and pick you up if you are ready. We need to take that bike frame over to Kesh's house today so his father can weld it together. Clyra said, my parents aren't up yet, so I'll meet you on the porch out front. Have you had breakfast? I had something light, said the blonde hybrid. Have you eaten? No, but I'll pack something easy we can eat on the way back to your house, answered the brunette girl. I am eager to get started. She could practically feel Naruto beaming at her through the communicator. I'll see you shortly then, he said happily. Naruto walked over to Clyra's house in about 20 minutes and knocked on her door lightly. He was soon greeted by his betrothed at the door. You look nice today, Clyra, he said shyly. She blushed prettily and gave him a tiny smile. Clyra said, it's just work clothes, Naruto, but thank you. Come in and let me finish packing our breakfast and we can go. The young pair was soon walking back to Naruto's home and they were talking about their plans for the day. He was explaining shadow clones and how they worked. That's amazing, Naruto, exclaimed Clyra. I can't wait to see them in action. The two made it to Naruto's house without incident and snacked on their breakfast. Soon Naruto was checking everything on the bike to make sure it was ready to transport, and Clyra called Kesh to make sure it was okay to bring the frame over as they discussed previously. Tyra soon had a flat look on her otherwise lovely face. What do you mean you forgot, Kesh? Get out of bed and get ready. We are coming over. After she turned off her communicator, she noted Naruto with a raised eyebrow and blushed slightly. She said, sometimes Kesh needs an extra push. Naruto hid his smile and asked, Kesh was still in bed, wasn't he? I'm afraid so, said Clyra. I guess that means we can take our time and finish our breakfast. Naruto nodded. That seems logical. After finishing off breakfast, the two teens got their things together to make the sojourn over to their friend's house. Naruto handed the half-meter-long replacement piece of frame they got from Mahawk Speeders to Clyra. I'll carry the rest, said Naruto as he picked up the frame with one arm and balanced it on his shoulder. Are you absolutely sure that's not too heavy, Naruto? Asked Clyra worriedly as Naruto closed the garage behind them. It's fine, the blonde said in an assuring tone. He gave her a tiny smile and said, let's go. Kesha's house. Clyra and Naruto came trotting up and exchanged greetings with Kesha's father, Skan. Good morning to you, Skan, is Kesh up? We brought the bike frame as we agreed last week, said Naruto. Skan's eyes were bulging at Naruto's holding the frame so easily. Is that an ultralight? He asked, confused. Naruto carefully set the frame down and said, not to my knowledge. Where do you need me to put it? Kesha's father went to move the frame himself and found he could only drag it instead of pick it up without extreme effort. Let me move it, said Naruto as he picked it up again.
Skan looked a bit dazed and said, "Lay it on its side over here with the bent side up."
Kesh came out of the house and into the garage with his long hair all wild from sleeping and said, "Father, Naruto and Clyra are coming with the bike. Oh, I see they are already here." "And good morning to you, Kesh," said Naruto.
"I trust you slept well." The blonde was enjoying the look of embarrassment on his friend's face. The long-haired boy decided to deflect the whole conversation and said, "Let's get to work on that bike, shall we?"
The hybrid hid a tiny grin and said, "By all means, let us proceed."
For her part, Clyra just shook her head at Kesh's antics. Kesh is a good friend, but sometimes he's a bit scatterbrained.
Skan carefully checked Naruto's measurements on the frame before he cut the damaged piece of frame out and fitted the new one. Handing Naruto the appropriate safety goggles and gloves, Skan carefully guided the blonde hybrid along as they welded the new frame piece in.
"And there you have it, Naruto," said Skan as he extinguished the plasma torch.
It's simple to use, but safety and careful alignment of all the parts in question are paramount.
The best thing about welding with a plasma torch is it cools to the touch in minutes.
Let's have some water and then we'll scan the weld and make sure it's all good. Kesh's father seemed quite pleased with the results. A half hour later, the group of four was examining the new weld with Skan's matter scanner that showed the shear strength and tensile strength of the weld.
"Everything looks as good as can be, Naruto," said Skan. "Very nicely done."
"Now all it needs is some paint to make it match," said Kesh. The long-haired boy was very enthused.
"I wish it was that easy, Kesh," said Naruto. "I've been reading up on this. We need to strip the paint for corrosion control, acid etch it and apply new paint and seal it. It would be extensive work unless we can find someone to do it for us like a paint shop." Kesh's father looked impressed. "It sounds like you kids are planning to do it right. What kind of shape is the engine in?" Naruto got a twinkle in his eye. "I have someone coming to look at it tonight. I believe he can help me out. We shall see." Flashback. Thursday evening, Jeff was talking to an upperclassman over dinner.
He was a tall, lanky Vulcan by the name of Adenker that Jeff was taking a math class with. His major was in engineering.
"Your project for the first trimester is to fix up an engine?" asked Jeff. Adenker shook his head.
"My project is to rebuild and upgrade an ion engine's performance, but I can't find an appropriate ion engine to work on.
They cost a lot, you know." Naruto cocked his head. "What about an ion speeder bike engine? They are smaller. Wouldn't that be cheaper?" Adenker looked a bit dubious. "Ion engines on repulsor bikes are more collector's items these days. It would cost a fortune to get one. One off a shuttle would be cheaper. It's a nice idea, but I have a VK220R ion engine I need completely rebuilt for my speeder bike," said Naruto.
"I'll let you rebuild it any way you want as long as it looks stock when you are through."
The lanky Vulcan said with wide eyes, "A VK220R? Are you serious?" Naruto nodded. "You get the grade and in return I get a restored engine. It seems like a good deal for both of us." Adenker asked, "How well does it run?"
"It ran 10 years ago when my father put it into storage," replied the blonde hybrid.
"I haven't tried to start it since I'm currently restoring the frame." "Can I look at it and see what kind of shape it's in?" asked Adenker. "It sounds too good to be true."
"Why do you say that?" asked Jeff curiously. "A VK220 had a standard engine, but a VK220R had a downgraded ion racing engine," said Adenker with fire in his eyes. "If that engine is stock and actually runs, then it would be a dream to rebuild one to racing standards."
"It would be perfect. How about you come out Saturday evening to give it a look?" asked Naruto. Adenker nodded vigorously and said, "Give me your home address and I'll come out to check it with my instruments." Flashback end.
"And so Adenker is going to come out and inspect it tonight," explained Naruto to the others.
"If it works out, I believe it could save me a small fortune since I haven't even studied the engine yet." Skan was goggle-eyed and studied the logo on the bike's frame that said VK220R on it.
"I had no idea this was in our 30 years ago. Every amateur racer there was wanted one of these to upgrade to racing specs.
This is a very desirable bike.
I wonder why father never said anything, pondered Naruto aloud.
Tara and Sovar's house, that evening.
A Denker pulled up in a small freight landspeeder and saw Naruto, Clyra, and Kesh waiting for him.
With the lanky Vulcan was Jeff Baker, who came along for the ride and to help if needed.
As they pulled up, Naruto directed them up the driveway to the garage.
Sovar heard Naruto open the garage and came out to oversee the proceedings. Though he trusted Naruto's judgment, Sovar wasn't going to let just anybody run off with the bike's engine.
A Denker gave the traditional Vulcan salute to all of them.
"Good evening. I brought my sensor rig to check the engine,"
he said as he motioned to a plethora of machinery on the back of his flatbed.
"He certainly has all the tools of the trade on that flatbed," thought Sovar.
"It looks like a mobile repair shop."
Naruto came over and welcomed them. "Good evening, Adenker. Welcome to my home. Jeff, it is good to see you.
Allow me to introduce my father Sovar, my betrothed Clyra, and my good friend Kesh.
Everyone, this is Adenker from the Vulcan Science Academy and my friend Jeff Baker of Earth." Jeff's eyes goggled. Naruto is engaged? Allison's not going to be happy.
The young human man took a good look at Clyra and thought, not that I blame Naruto, she's a total knockout. I bet she'll be a real bombshell when she gets older. Everyone finished exchanging greetings and Naruto rolled the engine out on the jack it was resting on.
He turned to Adenker.
"Where do you want it?" asked the blonde.
Adenker said, "I have a hoist.
We'll load it onto the back of the flatbed and put it in the testing cradle I have." Naruto was just going to lift the engine, but Clyra stopped him.
"Let him use the hoist.
You could hurt yourself," she said with concern in her voice.
Naruto nodded in agreement. 20 minutes later, the engine was firmly strapped down in its test cradle and Adenker was testing connections with more gear than anyone knew existed.
Finally, the lanky young Vulcan said, "I've checked all the connections.
Everything is within acceptable parameters. It's not optimal, but it is adequate. Let's start it up."
He motioned everyone away from behind the engine exhausts to the side where they were clear.
"No need to get blasted by the exhaust stream," he said. After everyone had moved clear, Adenker said, "Here we go." He was obviously excited.
The engine hummed and then made a sickly, coughing sound and belched black smoke out of the exhausts before it backfired and went quiet.
Everyone looked puzzled, but Adenker looked devastated. "My project," he muttered under his breath.
"Oh, it's doing that again," said Sovar as he climbed up beside the smoking engine.
He asked Adenker, "Do you have an adjustable wrench?" The lanky Vulcan student nodded and wondered what adjustments need to be made. "Here is the wrench," said Adenker as he handed it over. "What needs to be adjusted?"
"All my readings check out."
Sovar simply said, "Try starting it again."
The engine hummed and coughed once more and Sovar whacked the right front side of the engine with the wrench. Then the engine roared to life, and it blew smoke for about a minute before it started rumbling smoothly.
Adenker looked dumbfounded and asked, "What did you do?"
Naruto's father shrugged and said, "I have no idea, but it always worked."
"It was that or kicking it."
The blonde hybrid resisted the urge to face fault.
"Only you, father."
Clyra hid her smile at Naruto's facial expression of utter disbelief and Jeff said, "More importantly, it runs."
"It looks like your project is a go, Adenker."
Soon everyone was inside the garage, and they were looking over a standard contract from the Vulcan Science Academy's engineering program to borrow the engine for the remainder of the trimester. When Sovar and Adenker signed, it was obvious that the lanky young Vulcan man was giddy, by Vulcan standards, with excitement. He bowed and said to Sovar and Naruto, "I promise you that when I bring that engine back at the end of the term, it will be better than new." Everyone bade their farewells and Adenker and Jeff soon left with the engine firmly strapped down for safety.
Naruto turned to Sovar and asked, "So how did you learn to restart that engine with a wrench anyway?"
Sovar looked thoughtful and said, "I couldn't get the bike to start after the wreck bent the frame and it kept dying.
After hours of this, I lost my self-control and kicked it. Then it started right up."
Sovar seemed rather pleased with himself and Naruto just face-palmed.
"I should have known," said Naruto with a sigh. "You didn't employ the scientific method at all, did you, father?" Sovar nodded.
I find brute force will usually suffice my son, he said sagely.
Tara joined them and said, spoken like a true martial artist, my husband. Come inside and eat, everybody, it's time for dinner.
There is plenty for Clara and Kesh as well.
The next day,
Naruto spent most of his Sunday morning working on the electrical systems on the bike with Clara helping him since Kesh was busy doing homework that day. The two of them made an interesting discovery as they looked over the VR220 specifications.
There are aerodynamic fittings that cover all the exposed wiring on the frame, said Clara. Why is it missing on this one?
I guess we should ask father, said Naruto. The pair went in the house and found Sovar and Tara gently helping Talik with her Shan routine she was learning as part of her dancing. Naruto waited until Talik finished her routine and then clapped as the little girl finished.
Very good, Talik. You're doing well learning Shan. Talik bowed happily and said, Thank you, Naruto. Did you come to practice, son? Asked Sovar. We haven't sparred in some time.
Naruto paused and said, Actually, I had a question about some missing parts on the bike, but we haven't had a good spar in weeks now that you mention it.
Naruto turned to Clara and asked, Do you mind if I spar with father?
I don't mind, but you know I don't have any experience with the martial arts, replied the beautiful brunette girl.
Sovar said, Your body type is suited to Kun-at-la or Clara. You should train with Talik.
I would feel better if my future daughter-in-law could defend herself.
Wouldn't you agree, Naruto? Naruto nodded and asked, What would you think about learning Clara? It's an easy martial art that is also a good workout while you practice your forms. You can learn with me, said Talik happily. We can dance together. Clara was amused and said, I'll think about it. It might be enjoyable to learn.
Naruto and Sovar were soon in the backyard in their respective Kurila opening stances. Naruto was in the offensive position whereas Sovar was in the stiffer defensive form.
Any rules, father? Asked Naruto eagerly. Sovar nodded. Stay in one style or the other rather than your usual freestyle. I will stay in the Kurila style for now.
The blonde grinned ferally and said, I will too then.
I'm ready, father.
Sovar said, Begin, and Naruto vanished before Clara and Talik's eyes only to reappear in front of his father with a brutal open palm attack. Tara was used to this kind of speed and kept up easily enough as she sat with Talik in her lap on the back porch.
Naruto and Sovar were in a flurry of activity with brutal punches, kicks, and grappling moves employed.
Naruto suddenly went flying back and rolled to a halt on all fours. He shot back into the fray when Sovar motioned him forward. The sounds of the hits were like thunderclaps. Clara was baffled by the sounds alone and soon both men were quite disheveled. Sovar's long hair had been blown completely out of his normal ponytail and Naruto's spiky hair was all over the place. Naruto got under his father to leg sweep him but Sovar caught his son's careening leg and flipped the blonde over his shoulder. Naruto twisted midair and landed on his feet in a skid. After about 10 more minutes of furious activity, Sovar held up his hand for Naruto to stop.
Both men were breathing heavily. Well done, my son, said Sovar proudly. You haven't lost your edge at all while you've been away at the academy. Very good. Thank you, father, said Naruto. I was never able to get an opening in your defense though. Clara came over to Naruto and said worried, That was unbelievably frightening. Are you hurt, Naruto? She turned to Sovar and said, Are you hurt, Sovar?
We're both fine, said Sovar with a minimal smile as he dusted off his hands. Besides, Naruto is tougher than a Capellan power cat asterisk. I could probably knock him through a wall and he wouldn't even be fazed.
He chases away Lomatias, remember? After everyone got back inside, Sovar was drinking some juice with Naruto and said, So what was it you two wanted to ask me about earlier? Something about missing bike parts? Clara was still fussing over the now fully healed Naruto.
She said to Sovar, There were fairings that went over the wiring that are missing from the bike.
We were wondering where they went.
Sovar scratched his chin and said, I know where they are. The person I bought the bike from stripped all the trim off the bike so it would be easier to access the wiring to work on it.
I never bothered to put it back on.
There are a lot of extra parts over in the shed behind Mother's house. The parts are over at Lady Varek's house then? Asked Naruto.
Seeing Sovar nod, he said, "That's not good."
Lady Varek? Asked Clyra.
She is your grandmother, Naruto?
Terra explained. Mother Varek was unkind to Naruto as a child because he is a hybrid. She wouldn't let him address her as grandmother until he passed the Kazwan ritual, when she finally acknowledged him as her grandchild. Naruto refuses to address her as grandmother to this day.
Clyra suddenly looked rather uncomfortable. I see, that's not good.
Mother Varek has been quite interested in meeting you, Clyra, said Terra in a conversational tone. She's quite talkative, so watch what you say around her.
She is a gossip then? Asked the brunette girl as she looked over at the generally quiet Sovar.
Sovar shrugged. We still wonder how she and I are related given our personalities are nothing alike.
Perhaps I take after my father. What is he like? Asked Clyra.
I don't know, they divorced when I was still an infant, said Sovar.
I've never met him in living memory.
How unfortunate, said Clyra.
I am sorry to hear this.
Sovar said, you needn't worry about it, Clyra. I imagine my father had his reasons.
I made peace with that long ago.
She probably drove him away with her non-stop talking, thought both Naruto and Terra as one.
We'll get those parts later then, said Naruto. I don't have the patience to deal with Lady Varek today.
And I don't want her interrogating Clyra either, he thought darkly.
Stardate 2267.327, Vulcan Science Academy, Naruto Suite. It started off a normal school week.
On Tuesday, Naruto, Senva, Allison, and Jeff finished their homework early and at Allison's insistence were playing a Terran medieval-style role-playing game on their tablets.
Senva's knight died, again, against a vampire lord.
She and Naruto were both confounded by the total lack of logic involved. Senva sat there for a moment and said, there are two physical states of existence for mammalian animals. They are alive or they are dead.
Even when mammals go into deep hibernation, they are alive. What does undead mean?
It is not alive, yet it is not dead. An animated corpse must be alive if it is not dead.
Naruto was in a similar state of confusion.
These undead are vulnerable to fire more than the living, yet they are invulnerable to frostbite even though they are composed of the same flesh as ordinary humans. This is too illogical for me to continue.
Allison thought the whole situation was hilarious.
Seeing her two Vulcan friends practically banging their heads on the walls at the concept of vampires and ghouls was far more entertaining than the game they were playing. The redhead was in a state of uncontrollable giggles.
Jeff was trying to be more merciful. It's fantasy, guys.
In medieval times, the living feared graveyards because they feared the dead. They invented myths and... Why would anyone fear the dead? Asked Senva. Once life leaves the body, it ceases to move other than coiling into the fetal position.
This undead concept is absolutely confounding.
Maybe we should stick to cards, said Jeff forlornly. Shirkar City, Terra, and Sovar's house. On Wednesday morning, Terra had just returned from dropping Talak off at school when Clyra's mother Anuak called and disturbed the Onyxide beauty's otherwise peaceful morning. What do you mean 93 members of the Tolaris clan wish to attend Naruto and Clyra's Kun-at-la? Asked Terra. We agreed that 75 was the maximum. I'm afraid news traveled much faster through the clan than I expected, explained Anuak.
The Tolaris clan is very close-knit, and the Honorable Blue Dynasty has always.
Terra thought to herself, Honorable Blue Dynasty, how pompous. I am glad my future daughter-in-law has a more level head than her mother does.
Fine. We will make sure that they can fit somehow. No more last-minute changes though.
The rest of the seating is reserved for the Mphao clan only.
Even if we don't require it.
Anuak let out a huge sigh of relief.
Thank you for understanding, Terra.
You have no idea how much it will mean to Clyra and I.
Of course, gritted out Terra.
Well, I have things to attend to, so I will speak with you again soon. After ending the call, Terra thought aloud, in 4 days my little boy will finally have his Kun-at-la.
This is a happy time for our family.
Mother and Mother Varek as well as my stepfather and half-brothers and sisters will be attending. So will several of our cousins and grandparents.
I wonder how many will actually be able to make it. I'm a nervous wreck, she thought tiredly.
Planning this sort of thing is not my forte.
Stardate 2267.329, Vulcan Science Academy, Speeder Bike Training Course.
Deciding it was logical to learn to ride a speeder bike since he owned one, even if it currently didn't have an engine, Naruto took an hour each Thursday after classes to practice on the speeder bike training course. Naruto was racing along as fast as the speeder bike would carry him. The wind blew through his spiky blonde hair as he imagined making the jump to light speed in his head.
He was zipping along the track at breakneck speed as the bike's gyro stabilizers fought to keep up with the sheer velocity.
The digital speed gauges shot up into the red zone more than once as Naruto ripped up the desert track. Mathematics and the laws of physics shot through the blonde's mind as he barreled through the tight curves on the track that zigzagged in front of him. The blonde hybrid kicked his air brakes to whip the bike's tail around faster to take the corners without losing any momentum. His feral side wanted to laugh out loud as he shot across the finish line of his final lap. Then the simulation ended. A short Vulcan woman stormed out across the holographic display course and said with her eyes full of rage, "Mr. Fao, what possessed you to go through the holographic training course at 4 times the recommended speed? Up to this point you have been a model student driving on our training courses. Explain yourself."
Naruto scratched his neck in embarrassment.
I was trying to get the same sensations I felt while riding Zerals on the plains of Gol. With her eyebrows twitching madly, the instructor said, "Then I advise you go back to the plains of Gol and ride Zerals. You are done for today and will receive your course grades this evening. Consider this your first and last warning, Mr. Mfao."
"Yeah.
That's what I call hauling ass," said an excited Allison.
"I've never seen Instructor Elvire so angry."
She practically had steam coming out of her ears. The redhead clearly approved.
Naruto blushed a bit.
"I got a bit carried away focusing on speed, I suppose. I hope she doesn't expel me." Allison shrugged. "I'm sure she's seen worse.
I think you are safe."
She didn't expel that student that intentionally hit 28 pedestrians in the simulator.
She recommended that he get some psychiatric counseling instead, said Naruto darly.
"Good point," agreed his red-headed companion.
Stardate 2267.329, Vulcan Science Academy. Naruto was anxious and uneasy.
It was Friday morning and he was absolutely terrified something would go wrong with the Kun-at-la on Saturday. He'd called Clyra first thing in the morning to make sure she was safe. As it turned out, the brunette was very excited rather than nervous and assured him everything would be fine.
Flashback. It was obvious Clyra was amused. Truthfully, she thought Naruto worrying for her was both endearing and adorable given how confident Naruto usually was. "Naruto, everything is going to be fine. We are betrothed and the Kun-at-la will be wonderful.
For the first time our minds will truly touch as one.
I'm very happy."
"I'm sorry," said the blonde.
"I'm just concerned for your safety.
I wish I could be there now instead of here."
Clyra gave him a tiny smile. "You are coming home tonight, aren't you?"
Naruto nodded at the view screen and the beautiful brunette said, "I'll come over and visit with my parents then.
Mother says there are some last-minute things to take care of anyway. That way we can spend some time together." Flashback end.
They had talked for a bit and Naruto was nearly late for his first period class.
Hours later, Naruto sat down for lunch with his friends. "I'm all worried for nothing. Everything will be fine." Naruto swallowed.
"I'm going to be leaving tonight for an important family ceremony this weekend, so I won't be back until Sunday night or Monday morning."
Senva simply nodded in understanding, but Allison's ever-present curiosity was piqued. "What kind of a ceremony is it?" asked the redhead. Naruto said quietly, "It's a Kun-at-la ceremony. They are very private and intimate for the family."
"So, what is this Kun-at-la then?" asked Allison. Several people around them looked at the redhead and she suddenly realized she had an audience and they were all dead silent. Naruto was face-palming and Senva looked distinctively uncomfortable. For once Allison got embarrassed at all the attention and squeaked out blushing, "Never mind. Everyone quietly returned to eating, much to Allison's relief.
I guess I'll have to look it up later. It must be some kind of taboo subject, thought the redhead.
The rest of Naruto's school day shot by without him paying much attention.
He robotically took notes, but his thoughts were all centered on his lovely Clyra.
Shirkar City, Terra, and Sovar's house.
Naruto caught the 6 o'clock shuttle back to Shirkar City and arrived at home without incident.
He was welcomed home by Terra and Talak, who wanted to play with her big brother.
Naruto agreed to sit and read to Talak until Sovar got home an hour later. After Sovar got home, they washed up and had dinner. Clyra and her parents arrived a bit later.
Talak was very excited as she sat with Naruto and Clyra. "So, you're going to be my new big sister for real, Clyra?" asked the little girl curiously.
Clyra nodded and said, "That's right, Talak, Naruto and I will be husband and wife. Does that make you happy?"
The little girl slid out of Naruto's lap and gave Clyra a hug.
"We'll be great sisters," exclaimed Talak. "I can't wait." Clyra gently returned Talak's hug. "I can't wait either, little one. Tomorrow will be a wonderful day." Naruto was sitting on the couch listening to Anuak trying to make further changes to the ceremony and his mother Terra adamantly holding her ground.
The blonde was tired but too wound up to sleep. Clyra had her arms around Naruto's left bicep and was peacefully dozing with her head resting on his shoulder.
Naruto felt her warmth against him and relaxed a bit.
The blonde fell asleep too and was dreaming soon. "Clyra, isn't it logical to use blue flowers to represent the Dolores clan?" asked Anuak. "Your future mother-in-law believes that the regular flowers in the shrine are fine as is."
"Zzzzzzz," answered Clyra. "It seems that Clyra doesn't find the matter of importance," said Terra with a glint in her eye.
"It is illogical to make more last-minute changes and incur more expenses.
We are on a timetable and matters are set. This is their Kun-at-la, not their wedding."
Anuak was less than thrilled with Terra's views but found that the beautiful onyx-eyed scientist was nearly impossible to win a debate against.
Clyra's mother looked a bit mutinous but had to give in on this point.
"Very well, I suppose we will leave things as is.
Perhaps we can make up for this at the actual wedding." I can't believe Terra is so adamant about this.
The Honorable Blue Dynasty has important traditions to uphold.
Terra sighed. This woman's fixation on her clan's past is excessive. I understand tradition is important, but decorating the entire temple with blue flowers to honor a Dolores ceremony is going overboard.
I realize that Sovar and I are both Fawes, so there was never any sort of conflict, but this is patently ridiculous. Naruto was dreaming he was one of his wild Fao ancestors that just happened to have run off with a princess of the Honorable Blue Dynasty he read about during his research for his history paper. She was surprisingly happy and took to riding Zerals with her husband on the plains from then on. She was called the Wildflower Princess, and in Naruto's dream she bore a shocking resemblance to Clyra.
The next day would prove to be momentous. Chapter 10, USS Enterprise. Naruto, Infinity Divide. USS Enterprise. Blanket disclaimer: I do not own Naruto or Star Trek. Author's note: this chapter makes reference to Star Trek, TOS episode Amok Time. I have footnoted it, but you may want to watch it or read a synopsis before reading this chapter, as things won't make sense without it. Enjoy. Signifies Old Gallic Vulcan. For those of you keeping track, here is an updated timeline of the story. Stardate year Starfleet Battles Timeline. Stardate 2230. Equals 2230 equals Y120 Spock born to Amanda Grayson in Sarek. Stardate 2233. Equals 2233 equals Y123 Kirk born. Stardate 2336. Equals 2336 equals Y126 Constitution class launched. Stardate 2254. Equals 2254 equals Y144 Republic NCC 1371 Ensign James T. Kirk. Stardate 2254. Equals 2254 equals Y144 Naruto born to Terra and Sovar. Stardate 2263. Equals 2263 equals Y153 Talek born to Tara and Sovar. Stardate 2265-2270 equals 2265 to 2270 equals Y155 Y160 USS Enterprise 5-year mission, TOS. Stardate 2265 equals 2265 equals Y155 Naruto's Cos1. Stardate 2267 equals 2267 equals Y157 Naruto enters the Vulcan Science Academy. Stardate 2267 equals 2267 equals Y157 Naruto and Clyra Kun-at-la. Last time. Clyra, isn't it logical to use blue flowers to represent the Taloris clan? Asked Anuak. Your future mother-in-law believes that the regular flowers in the shrine are fine as is. ZZZZZZ answered Clyra. It seems that Clyra doesn't find the matter of importance, said Tara with a glint in her eye. It is illogical to make more last-minute changes and incur more expenses. We are on a timetable and matters are set. This is their Kun-at-la, not their wedding. Anuak was less than thrilled with Tara's views but found that the beautiful onyxide scientist was nearly impossible to win a debate against. Clyra's mother looked a bit mutinous but had to give in on this point. Very well, I suppose we will leave things as is. Perhaps we can make up for this at the actual wedding. I can't believe Tara is so adamant about this. The Honorable Blue Dynasty has important traditions to uphold. Tara sighed. This woman's fixation on her clan's past is excessive. I understand tradition is important, but decorating the entire temple with blue flowers to honor a Tolaris ceremony is going overboard. I realize that Sovar and I are both Fawes, so there was never any sort of conflict, but this is patently ridiculous. Naruto was dreaming he was one of his wild Fao ancestors that just happened to have run off with a princess of the Honorable Blue Dynasty he read about during his research for his history paper. She was surprisingly happy and took to riding Zerals with her husband on the plains from then on. She was called the Wildflower Princess, and in Naruto's dream she bore a shocking resemblance to Clyra. The next day would prove to be momentous. Chapter 10. Stardate 2267.330, Planet Vulcan, Shikar District, Shikar Temple. Naruto would have been sweating a river if he had sweat glands. The whole morning had been a whirlwind of activity, and now they were at the temple for the Kun-at-la. As he looked over the crowd there, he saw a sea of blue-wearing Vulcans of the Tolaris clan and the much smaller red-wearing group of the Mfao clan. He wasn't bothered or upset by the lack of his clan members. The notice had been very short, and those who could make it did. He sought his maternal grandmother Sarisa with his aunts and uncles that he knew in passing from Neith City. Naruto also saw Lady Varek and the rest of the odd group that formed his father's side of the family. Then Naruto sought his artistic cousins Taurek and Elinat along with their daughter Zirin. They all had sketchbooks ready. I hope they don't make an outburst or something else that is equally embarrassing, thought Naruto darkly. The high priestess of the temple greeted everyone formally and then proceeded to announce the Kun-at-la. Today in this sacred place we will hold the Kun-at-la of Naruto Mfao and Clyra Tolaris with the blessings of their parents. Before we begin, is there anyone present who would object to this bonding? Naruto and Clyra both heard deafening silence as the priestess motioned them to come forward to the altar to be bound. Naruto's blue eyes were nervous, but Clyra's brown ones were full of joy. Naruto felt a bit more relaxed as he saw Clyra radiating happiness. The high priestess said in Old Gallic, "Let us begin then. Since the beginnings of our people, even before the Great Awakening to logic, our people have held the Kun-at-la as a sacred part of their lives. We have come together. I object to this union," yelled a male voice. A teenaged Vulcan boy and his larger companions stood in the entryway to the shrine. The high priestess had her eyes wide in shock as the young man who yelled strode forward with his friend and said, "Clyra Tolaris belongs to me. You will turn her over to us now. Otherwise, I dash." The room was suddenly flooded with an oppressive killing intent from Naruto, whose blue eyes were crackling with chakra energy. He'd seen the look of fear on Clyra's face and was going to protect her at all costs. Arev saw the blue fire in Naruto's eyes and shivered in fear.
Arev was about to move towards Tlyra when he found something was blocking his path.
It was Sovar.
Sovar wasn't a particularly large Vulcan, but to Arev the man seemed several meters tall and several wide suddenly.
His aura was simply that overwhelming. Sovar asked in a calm voice, "You are Arev whose bond was broken with Tlyra because of your emotional madness?" Arev did his best to look intimidating and stuttered out, I am Arev and I dash.
There was a horrific smacking sound that made people's ears ring and Arev crumpled to the floor like a sack of potatoes. Sovar still had an open palm out and said quietly, "You do not belong in this sacred place."
Sovar then looked at Arev's terrified companion and asked, "And you are?"
"Just leaving," squeaked the bigger Vulcan as he turned tail and ran out of the temple like the hounds of hell were nipping at his heels. He must be an emotionalist as well, thought Sovar with a nonchalant shrug. Every member of the Tolaris clan was wide-eyed with shock, but the Mphas just acted like this was an ordinary thing to happen.
Taurik, Elenat and Zirin were inspired and immediately started drawing.
Sovar shook his head in disgust at Arev and said to the High Priestess, "Excuse me one moment." He picked up Arev's unconscious form and carried the interloper out of the temple.
All was silent for about 10 minutes when Sovar came back in and quietly returned to his seat beside Terra. "Please continue," said Sovar.
"There will be no further interruptions." The High Priestess nodded shakily. "We have come together to bond these two today so that their lives." Terra leaned over to her husband and whispered, "So where did you put that boy, Arev?" Sovar gently squeezed Terra's hand and whispered back, "You know how I am about cleanliness. I deposited the trash in a proper container down the street."
Terra's onyx eyes glittered with humor. "The public dumpster?"
"That would be correct, my wife," said Sovar.
"Let's watch our son's special day now." "My mind to your mind," said the High Priestess.
"My mind to your mind," repeated Naruto and Tlyra.
"My thoughts to your thoughts," said the High Priestess.
"My thoughts to your thoughts," repeated Naruto and Tlyra. Both young people suddenly felt a union of their hearts and souls. Tlyra felt Naruto's power wash over her as her own life force gently embraced his. "It is beautiful, my husband," she thought happily. "You are beautiful, my wife," thought Naruto as the bond completed.
Their unified thoughts swirled in harmony and both Tlyra and Naruto felt a form of joy and happiness they'd never experienced before. They were one.
All too soon they returned to the physical plane and looked lovingly into each other's eyes. "The Kun-at-la is a success," announced the High Priestess. "Live long and prosper." Naruto and Tlyra soon were the center of a sea of congratulations, and Tlyra said to her new father-in-law, "Thank you for dealing with Arev, Father Sovar."
Sovar gave a tiny smile.
It was the most logical thing to do at the time. Besides, if Naruto got there first, that troublemaker Arev and his cohort would no longer be counted among the living.
Naruto asked, "Was this another example of the application of brute force, father?"
"You are learning, my son," said Sovar as he ruffled Naruto's blonde hair. "Sometimes a good smack upside the head can be quite effective." The young couple spent the rest of their weekend together celebrating with their families.
Stardate 2267.340, Planet Vulcan, Mount Celia.
Personal log of Taramphal. My officer's commission was reactivated unexpectedly yesterday by my old superior, Rear Admiral Sheila Tristan. She informed me I was the only officer in the area available for this duty. Somehow an incident * with Commander Spock, son of Sarek, has caused ripples in Starfleet High Command, and I have been selected to talk to our High Priestess T'Pau about the situation and carry out an investigation. It had been 10 days since Naruto's and Tlyra's Kun-at-la and Terra was carrying out another duty.
She climbed Mount Celia's steps along with her husband Sovar.
Her mission as a Starfleet reservist officer was to meet with High Priestess T'Pau to hear her words. T'Pau wasn't willing to impart them to a non-Vulcan. After a long climb, the couple was taken before the High Priestess. Terra bowed with Sovar and made the Vulcan salute. She said, "We come to serve." T'Pau returned the salute and said, "Your service honors us."
"You are Terra of the Federation Starfleet?"
"That is correct, my lady. I am accompanied by my husband Sovar of Shirkar."
"I welcome you both," said T'Pau.
"I will speak with Terra alone."
Sovar may rest if he so wishes. T'Pau's home.
T'Pau said in a no-nonsense tone, no doubt you and wondering why I summoned you.
8 days ago, Spock, son of Ambassador Sarek and Amanda Grayson, came to Mount Celia suffering from the blood fever.
He got that far into Ponfar? Asked Tara.
He must not have been prepared.
He was in deep space aboard his ship in Starfleet and was unable to come home to Vulcan to fulfill his biological needs, explained T'Pau. In the end, there was a challenge issued by his bondmate, and Spock apparently killed his superior officer in Starfleet, which broke him free of the blood fever. Tara's onyx eyes hardened, and she said, "Spare me no details, my lady. This is very serious, not only for all of Vulcan but for Starfleet as well."
T'Pau nodded. "It is well that you understand the gravity of this situation.
This is why I chose to impart this only to a fellow Vulcan." Stardate 2267.344, NCC 1701 USS Enterprise.
Ship's log, Captain James T. Kirk reporting. NCC 1701 USS Enterprise has been assigned to return to planet Vulcan in the 40 Eridania system.
After our last visit nearly 2 weeks ago, the crew was surprised to return so soon from Altair 4. An investigation by Starfleet into the nature of Commander Spock's last visit to his homeworld is pending, and we were informed to move at flank speed to planet Vulcan.
On the positive side, I already am acquainted with the officer in charge of the investigation, Lieutenant Commander Tara.
Tara appeared on the transporter pad looking resplendent in her blue Starfleet dress uniform. She saw her former crewmate from the USS Republic, Ensign, now Captain, James T. Kirk. Alongside him was a tall Vulcan that Tara recognized as Commander Spock.
"Lieutenant Commander Tara reporting for duty," said the onyx-eyed woman. Kirk smiled. "Welcome aboard, Commander Tara. I hope your visit is a productive one. She's just as gorgeous as I remember her. I'm Captain James T. Kirk.
I don't know if you remember me, but we served on the Republic together."
Tara nodded. "You were an ensign then."
"You have done well for yourself, Captain, commanding a heavy cruiser no less." She gave the Vulcan salute. "You must be Commander Spock. I apologize in advance for invading your privacy during this visit."
Spock returned her salute and said, "I've been informed of the nature of your investigation. I will do everything to help speed your analysis." "Excellent," said the onyx-eyed beauty. "With your permission, Captain, I will begin immediately." Kirk turned to his first officer and said, "Mr. Spock, I trust you'll want to handle this?" Spock nodded.
"Using such discretion would be best, but both you and Dr. McCoy's input will be necessary at some point."
"Will be available," Spock assured Kirk. Mr. Spock's quarters. "I'm surprised you have not asked about my hybrid nature, Commander Tara." "Most Vulcans do," said Spock as they sat down. "Tea?"
"Yes, please," said Tara as she accepted her tea. "While it would be logical to assume I am curious, I am a friend of your mother, Lady Amanda Grayson.
My firstborn is a hybrid as well, and her guidance has proven invaluable. It is irrelevant for now.
I am here to exchange information with you about the recent Ponfar experience."
"As I understand it, this was your first Ponfar?" Spock nodded. "That is correct, Commander Tara."
High Priestess T'Pau has made the suggestion that bonded pairs of Vulcans serving in Starfleet should serve on the same ship to prevent further Ponfar incidents such the one as you recently experienced, said Tara.
"That is against Starfleet's fraternization policies," replied Spock. "What does Starfleet Command think of this idea?"
"Starfleet High Command is divided on the subject, but it is your opinion that is important in this case," said Tara. "We already have bonded groups of Deltans serving together due to their need for extreme intimacy. The regulations are already in place for such arrangements. It would prevent unfortunate situations such as those you recently experienced. Starfleet Command has no concept that Ponfar can be life-threatening. I understand that your ship's doctor intervened and put your captain in a false death state to save his life."
"Dr. McCoy saved Captain Kirk's life," said Spock shamefully.
"There is no doubt of that because I was completely absorbed by the blood fever."
"It seems your chief medical officer is quite clever," said Tara. Spock nodded in agreement.
Dr. Leonard McCoy is my friend and I am thankful for his intervention, however illogical he is at times. I found in my years of service that the human's illogical nature can prove to be quite useful as a counterpoint in an argument, said Tara. It does make things difficult at times though.
Indeed, said Spock. Forgive my saying so, but you seem rather fond of humans.
My son is a hybrid as you are, explained Tara. He has characteristics that baffled me when he was little, but with your mother Lady Amanda's guidance, I was able to overcome my confusion. It was her guidance as a human that helped me immensely.
He is half human then? Asked Spock, surprised.
Tara shook her head. He is half Vulcan and his other half comes from the extinct species of Tauri Prime 4. Many of his abilities are still a mystery.
Fascinating, said Spock. Tara nodded. Indeed.
After a customary tour of the ship from Mr. Spock, Tara was invited to dine with the captain and his staff.
Chief Engineer Montgomery Scott said, "So you served with Captain Kirk aboard the Republic. She's a grand old lass." There was a twinkle in Scott's eye. "So, what was our captain like as a junior officer?" Tara looked thoughtful. As an ensign, Captain Kirk was impulsive, reckless, and immature. He was also a womanizer. He was a responsible officer, though, despite his relative inexperience. The entire staff was stifling chuckles of amusement, except Spock, of course. Kirk just sweat dropped. Kirk asked, "So what about Tauri Prime 4?
You were a great loss to the Republic, Commander Tara."
"The child?"
"My son and a fine young Vulcan," said Tara.
"He entered the Vulcan Science Academy at the age of 13 as one of the top 3 in his class." "Impressive," said Spock. "He must be years ahead of his peers." "What is he studying?" "His majors are astrophysics, quantum mechanics, and genetics."
"He also has an interest in astronomy," stated Tara.
"He seems to long for the stars, as I always did."
"I would not be surprised if he joined Starfleet someday."
Kirk thought a moment and then grinned. "Do you think your boy would like a tour of the Enterprise?" Stardate 2267.345, Planet Vulcan, Vulcan Science Academy.
Naruto was recording his thoughts on Saturday morning before he began his day.
Personal log, I have received the most unusual opportunity to tour the Federation starship USS Enterprise this afternoon.
Apparently, the ship's first officer is Mr. Spock and is Lady Amanda Grayson's son. He is the only other Vulcan hybrid that has ever survived into adulthood. When I spoke to Mother about it, she said it was the idea of the ship's captain James T. Kirk, who was in the landing party on Tauri Prime 4 when I was conceived.
I've spent the morning preparing for my trip.
I will be traveling by transporter beam from the Vulcan Science Academy, and I am supposed to meet up with 2 junior officers from the Enterprise named Pavel Chekhov and Hikaru Sulu. They are an ensign and a lieutenant respectively.
I hope this trip proves to be an educational one.
I've never been on a transporter or into space before, so this should be an interesting experience.
Sadly, all they were told to watch for was spiky blonde hair and whisker marks. Vulcan Science Academy Transporter Platform. Lieutenant Sulu and Ensign Chekhov arrived an hour early so they would have the opportunity to poke around at the famous Vulcan Science Academy. They were welcomed in the traditional Vulcan way with the salute, which the pair did their best to emulate in return. Once they stepped outside, Sulu said to Chekhov slyly, "So Chekhov, what takes precedence, our little tour or admiring the women asterisk? We have an hour before we pick up the lieutenant commander's kid." Chekhov scratched his chin in deep thought. "I think the women should definitely take precedence, Sulu. Remember, part of our duty is to always learn more about foreign cultures and appreciation of the arts." It wasn't until 30 minutes later that the 2 young officers who were appreciating the beauties of Vulcan realized something. There were absolutely no signs to be found anywhere on any of the rooms in the dorms in the Vulcan Science Academy, and what little they found was in Gullic Vulcan that they needed a tricorder to translate. They were irretrievably lost. Naruto was soon at the transporter platform 5 minutes early. He was in his crimson foul robes with his academy medallion on. The blonde looked in and didn't see anyone but staff members of the academy. After 10 minutes, Naruto entered and gave the Vulcan salute to the technicians there and asked,
Forgive me for interrupting your work, but I was supposed to meet 2 Starfleet officers here at noon and I see no sign of them.
Could you tell me if they have arrived yet?
One of the technicians went over to a podium and brought up his log entries.
Do you know their names, student? He asked. Naruto nodded and said, They are Lieutenant Hikaru Sulu and Ensign Pavel Chekhov, sir.
The tech looked at his screen and said, They arrived at 11 and have yet to return. They arrived an hour early? Asked Naruto.
He looked at his chronometer. I am on time.
Where are they?
With Sulu and Chekhov. The transporter platform is in that direction, said a female Vulcan student to the 2 officers.
You are at the far end of the eastern dorm. Go straight west until you see the main entryway and go south.
The transporter platform is on the east side near the main entrance.
Do you require more specific instructions? Sulu smiled weakly and said, No, thank you for your assistance. The young lady nodded and was on her way. I guess that all Vulcans are dry as Mr. Spock.
Chekhov was thinking along the same lines and said, We're already running late, Sulu. We should get going.
They were about halfway back through the eastern dorm when they saw a boy with a spiky mop of blonde hair and whisker marks headed straight towards them.
Naruto came up to the 2 officers and said, You are Officers Sulu and Chekhov, I presume? Sulu nodded and said, I'm Sulu and this is my friend Chekhov.
I'm pleased to meet you.
Chekhov looked a bit perplexed. Spiky blonde hair? Check. Whisker marks? Check. You must be Commander Tereya's son Naruto.
That is correct, said Naruto. You were not at the transporter platform, so I came to track you down.
How did you find us so quickly? Asked Sulu. Naruto answered, I used my nose. Human scents are rather strong, so finding you among Vulcans was a simple task. Both Sulu and Chekhov sweat dropped.
You seem quite Vulcan, Naruto, said Chekhov. Naruto gave them a flat look only a Vulcan could give and said, That is a most logical conclusion given I am Vulcan.
Shall we get going?
We are already 20 minutes late and will be 30 minutes late by my estimation once we reach the transporter platform. He seems like a mini version of our first officer, thought Sulu darkly as Naruto led them back to the transporter platform room with purpose in his step.
Chekhov wondered, how is it even Vulcan children manage to make feel kind of stupid? Transporter room, USS Enterprise.
Yeoman Janice Rand had been standing in the transporter room for nearly 25 minutes tapping her foot wondering where Sulu and Chekhov were with their guest Naruto. Where in the hell are they, she thought irritably. I hope that Commander Tereya's son isn't some kind of hoodlum giving them trouble. If she only knew the truth, he was the responsible one. Then again, the idea of a Vulcan child being out of control seems kind of ludicrous.
The calm blared to life. Vulcan Science Academy transporter platform to USS Enterprise. We have 3 to beam up when you are ready. The transporter chief said, Here we go, yeoman. He adjusted his controls and said, This is USS Enterprise to VSA transporter platform. We are ready to receive.
You may transport when ready. As Rand watched the transporter beams activate, she thought, Phew, I was afraid I'd be collecting my retirement before they got here. Sulu, Chekhov, and Naruto shimmered into existence and Rand stepped forward. She was surprised by Naruto's appearance but did not show it.
Mr. Sulu, Chekhov, welcome back. You must be Lieutenant Commander Tereya's son Naruto. I'm Yeoman Janice Rand. Welcome aboard the Enterprise.
Naruto bowed and gave the traditional Vulcan salute.
I thank you for having me.
Rand soon found herself with her hands full as she showed Naruto around the ship. He'd spent the previous night studying the Constitution-class cruisers as well as the history of the Enterprise. She was taking him to non-classified areas of the ship, but Naruto seemed to know about classified areas pretty well. Well, Naruto, it seems to me we'd need to ask an engineer that question.
I'm not well acquainted with the actual shape of warp fields you see.
Naruto was soon welcomed to the bridge by Kirk himself.
Welcome aboard, Naruto. I've been looking forward to meeting you.
I served with Commander Terra aboard the Republic. The blonde hybrid bowed deeply and said, thank you for inviting me aboard your ship, Captain. It has been most educational. Kirk smiled to himself and thought, I guess that's the Vulcan equivalent of this is really neat. I'm glad you are enjoying your visit. Let's sit you in the captain's chair so you can view things as a starship commander does. Naruto was soon admiring his home planet Vulcan through the view screen. So this is space, thought Naruto aloud. Kirk found that showing the boy around was a rather fun deviation from the norm. The captain pointed out the helm and navigator stations as well as the science station. The science station is where Commander Terra was stationed on the USS Republic, said Kirk as Naruto looked in the viewscreen showing the makeup of planet Vulcan's atmosphere. This is most fascinating, said the spiky-haired blonde. Kirk wanted to chuckle. Eventually Yeoman Rand took Naruto down to the unclassified areas of engineering where she introduced Mr. Scott to Naruto. Chief Engineer Montgomery Scott scratched his chin. Changing the curvature of a warp field to help facilitate the sudden motion shifts of a high-energy turnum, it's actually a very plausible theory, Naruto. It's rough and needs to be developed mathematically, but it would be an elegant solution to the breakdown problems that plague larger warships. The engineer snapped his fingers and led them over to a console. Let's run a simulation. Yeoman Rand stood there feeling like a fifth wheel as Scott and Naruto bantered in mathematical theories that made her head spin. The changes in the warp bubble and so forth meant very little to her. Oh brother, the kid's some kind of engineering genius. I'm just going to stand here and just nod along. I know nothing about warp theory other than the basics. Mr. Scott seems to have made a new friend. Observation deck. Terra was completing her initial reports and spoke to Naruto. My task is classified from civilians, of course, but suffice it to say it won't take much longer, perhaps 2 or 3 days. How are you enjoying your visit aboard the USS Enterprise? Have you discovered anything of interest? I have visited most of the ship's highlights with Yeoman Rand. In sick bay, Dr. McCoy seemed quite interested in my genetic makeup, said Naruto. I also sat in the captain's chair and I saw the science station like you worked on the bridge of the Republic. It was very interesting. Anything else of interest? Asked Terra. Naruto's blue eyes glinted. Chief Engineer Scott seemed very intrigued about some of my warp field theories. We ran a few simulations, and he said the concept behind my curvature theory is sound. Terra had a twinkle in her onyx eyes. I did tell you one day you would surpass me in astrophysics. Well done, my son. It's only a theory, mother, said Naruto bashfully. She reached over and ruffled his blonde locks. I've read Mr. Scott's dossier. He is a superb engineer. If he says the theory is sound, then I would say it is. She paused a moment and made a notation on her report. I believe you should meet Mr. Spock. As a fellow hybrid, I am confident that the two of you could have an enlightening conversation. Mr. Spock's quarters. Yeoman Rand dropped Naruto off at Mr. Spock's quarters where the two hybrids exchanged the Vulcan salute. Welcome, Naruto. I am Schn Tkai Spock *, son of Sarek. Naruto bowed. I am Naruto Mphao, son of Sovar. I am honored to meet you. Spock and Naruto were soon deep in conversation about being hybrids over some Vulcan tea that Spock brewed for his guests. I too was considered less than worthy by others until I passed my Coswan, said Spock. I considered it highly illogical then as I do now. Bias and alienation seem to accompany us hybrids. It makes life difficult at times. Is that why you joined Starfleet, sir? Asked Naruto. It seems that bias is not such a factor here. Spock drummed his fingers together. That is one reason I joined Starfleet. The other is more personal. I did not wish to pry, said Naruto in an apologetic tone. Waving his hand in an assuring manner, the older hybrid said, you were not prying. Do you have a good relationship with your parents? I count my mother and father as my greatest supporters, answered the blonde. I could not ask for better parents. Spock nodded. Consider yourself blessed in that respect then. While I have a cordial relationship with my mother, my father and I do not get along well. You left for Starfleet to get away from your father's influence then, extrapolated Naruto. Spock nodded. Your secret is safe with me, Mr. Spock.
Transporter room. At the end of a fulfilling day on the Enterprise, Naruto was escorted to the transporter room and thanked his hosts for letting him visit.
He said goodbye to each of them with the Vulcan salute and then turned to Mr. Spock.
Live long and prosper SCHNTI Spock. Spock returned the salute and said, Peace and long life Naruto Mfao. May we meet again someday. As Naruto beamed down, Dr. McCoy turned to Spock and asked, What was all that gibberish he said before your name, Spock? I couldn't make heads or tails of it.
That was my full name, Doctor, answered Spock in his usual dry tone.
McCoy was wide-eyed. That was your actual name?
I had no idea, thought Kirk aloud.
No wonder Spock told us it was unpronounceable.
Stardate 2268.003, Planet Vulcan, Terra and Sovar's house. Personal log of Terra Mfao. I have been in touch with both Starfleet High Command and Rear Admiral Tristan. I was originally told my commission was going to be active only for the duration of my investigation of Commander Spock's situation, but it has been extended to 6 months. Our Klingon and Xinti neighbors have been having border skirmishes, and it is quickly escalating into what is already being called the Fourth Klingon-Xinti War. The Federation is in an antagonistic relationship with the Klingon, having fought a minor war with them recently, and our relations with the cat-like Xintis are more or less neutral at this point. It is difficult not to be concerned. Though I am a shore-based reservist, I have been informed that Starfleet is preparing to mobilize along the Klingon border. It would be a simple matter for orders to come through and return me to active shipboard duty. I am not a flag officer, but shifting units as a threat to the Klingon seems like an illogical policy to me. I worry that the Federation may soon end up in a war we want no part of, nor are we prepared for. Naruto was at home for a month, having finished the first trimester of the school year, and was spending some quality time working on his bike with his betrothed. In the past months, Tlyra had found she not only excelled at mechanics, she truly enjoyed working on things. Her mother Anuak was a bit appalled, thinking it was very unfeminine, but her father Fowler seemed a bit more accepting of it. As they worked on the air brakes together, Tlyra said to Naruto, After this next year of primary school I plan to apply at a technical school like the Shirkar Technical Institute. I'll need to study my mathematics more to get in, I imagine.
Naruto set the parts he was working on down.
You certainly have a talent for these things, said the blonde. Let's get on our tablets and see what Shirkar Tech has as their entry requirements, so you'll know which classes to take the rest of the year. The young couple was soon sitting side by side as they looked over the various requirements for the Shirkar Technical Institute and discovered that Tlyra would need to take more advanced math and some physics to meet the requirements for entry the next year. This is excellent, Tlyra, said Naruto in a pleased tone.
I'll be happy to help you learn if you want. Tlyra gave him a tiny smile.
Between learning Shan from Mother Terra and working on the bike, I have a pretty full schedule. Remember that I'll always be here to help if you need it, said Naruto. He gently squeezed her hand. I feel better knowing you are learning self-defense. I want you to be safe.
The brunette beauty shook her head in amusement. I think Talek is stronger than I am when it comes to Shan.
Naruto shrugged.
Father says Talek has the potential to become a true monster at Shan. With the dancing lessons she's taking, Talek is much stronger than she looks.
Those same muscles are used in Shan.
She's also very fast and flexible. Of course, Talek's still little, but her potential is amazing. What does Father Sovar say about me and the martial arts? Asked Tlyra curiously.
The blonde replied.
Father said you have a lot of potential with Shan, but he wants to teach you Kun-at-la.
He said your body type is perfect for it.
Kun-at-la is a defensive art, isn't it? Asked Tlyra.
Yes, it is designed to defend against multiple opponents and uses their own strength against them, said Naruto. It's kind of the opposite of my Kuril-la that relies so much on power and strength. Well, you have plenty of strength to spare, said the brunette, amused. On the other hand, it is really convenient when something heavy needs to be moved. She leaned in against Naruto and said, Let's just sit here for a while.
It is very comfortable leaning against you.
Naruto put his arm around Tlyra and she closed her eyes.
I wonder what tomorrow will bring, thought Naruto.
That's it, guys, for this reading. I hope you liked it. and I thank you for your continued support. Please like and subscribe for a free ticket to the different worlds of anime fanfiction.
I look forward to having you on board again.